Chapter 741. The earthy yellow crystal stone seemed to be stained with the aura of the earth. Jiang Xiu was pleasantly surprised. Such a supreme treasure must contain the law, and its power was so great. He had reason to believe that it might be in existence of a higher level than the water tribulation. It was buried deep in the ground and at such a high temperature, but it was still intact. In addition, the power displayed by the Lord of the Forbidden Area not only contained the law, but also had an extremely powerful special effect. Jiang Xiu stretched out his hand. To be on the safe side, he paused for a moment to make sure that the earthy yellow crystal stone was not confined to the surface. Just the power it emitted almost killed Jiang Xiu. If it really released its power, Jiang Xiu would be killed in minutes. After the crystal stone was in his hand, Jiang Xiu felt a gentle qi. If he guessed correctly, only when it was stained with special blood would it emit power. Otherwise, it would not have any lethality. He wanted to refine the crystal stone on the spot, but as soon as he tried to refine it, he encountered a force of confinement, like a layer of film protecting the crystal stone. Moreover, he felt a strong immortal power. This was a confinement set by an immortal cultivator. If he was not mistaken, it should be at the level of a mortal emperor. Not to mention that he was not at the level now. Even if he reached the level of God, he would not have the chance to break the immortal confinement. But fortunately, this crystal stone was not so destructive. Jiang Xiu gave up on refining it, and peeped into the power inside. He felt the vast aura of earth. He had felt it just now. Great! Jiang Xiu was overjoyed after he peeped into the law inside the crystal stone. There was a complete law of earth inside. If it was not complete, the crystal stone would not be able to reach its current level and power. Among the 6 weapons of his great art of God sealing, the fire element was missing. The law of earth was blank. Now that he had obtained the law of earth by chance, it would be a big step towards the great art of God sealing. According to Jiang Xiu's own deduction, his divine body was very likely to advance to the level of divine emperor after entering the mature period. But with the great art of God sealing, the possibility was even greater. If he could not become a divine emperor after being ranked 9th in the 3000 Great Tao, it would be too much. What a pleasant surprise. Jiang Xiu had come here to save Shui Wuyao. He had not expected to obtain the law of earth. After comprehending the law of earth, he was only half a step away from forming the great God sealing technique's God sealing monument. In other words, he was only a small step away from becoming a God King. He was only a small step away from reaching the God King realm. He could almost see the divine emperor waving at him again. If it weren't for the fact that the time and place weren't right, he would have sat down and started cultivating. However, his third Protos's talent split into countless lines of thought and probed into the crystal. Then his whole body emerged from the ground. He had spent a month in real time on heavenly water, but in reality, he had spent more than 700 years. As for the law of earth, because he had 5 laws, his concealment ability was stronger, so it should have been slower. However, with heaven-defying Jiang Xiu's second talent, time was not a problem at all. Seeing Jiang Xiu emerge with the crystal in his hand, everyone in the immortal tribulation sect could not remain calm. This was the most precious treasure of the forbidden area. How could they let Jiang Xiu take it away? Hua Yufeng said, "Sect Master Jiang, this item belongs to my immortal tribulation sect." Jiang Xiu said indifferently, "I know. It was dug out from your family's land. Of course, it belongs to your immortal tribulation sect." Hua Yufeng said, "Since you're sure that this treasure belongs to my immortal tribulation sect, you and I are both immortal sects. You should return this treasure to our sect." "Return?" Hua Yufeng and the others all nodded. Jiang Xiu said, "We're both immortal sects. Of course I should return it. But now is not the time." He mocked in his heart. "Things have already turned out this way. Don't you have any idea whether I'll return it or not? We've already killed him. Of course, we'll take the treasure." The expressions of Hua Yufeng and the others changed at the same time, especially Elder Yu and Elder Song. Their faces were sullen, and their eyes were so dull that they began to doubt their lives. "Who am I? Where am I from?" "Sect Master Jiang, this is not what immortals do." Jiang Xiu's eyes turned cold. "You wanted to steal the Misty Sword soul. You'd rather let him go crazy than cure him. This is what immortals do. You knew that we were lured to the forbidden area. Not only did you protect the culprit, but you also wanted to kill us. Is this what immortals do? They were all speechless by Jiang Xiu's words. They all lowered their heads in shame. Just a moment ago, you were still shouting that you wanted to kill me. But unfortunately, you didn't have enough means and were killed by me. Now that I've killed you and taken your treasure, what immortals do you want to talk to me about? They had already turned against each other. It was really disgusting to talk about this. But Hua Yufeng didn't have any rules. They had all seen Jiang Xiu's strength. Even the master of the forbidden area couldn't do anything to Jiang Xiu. What right did they have to fight against Jiang Xiu? Jiang Xiu spoke to these people, but he didn't slow down his comprehension of the law of earth. He was still circulating various laws in his body, trying to cultivate. Hua Yufeng glared fiercely at Elder Yu and Elder Song. If it weren't for these two, today's matter wouldn't have happened. The master of the forbidden area was killed and the inheritance was stolen. If they couldn't deal with it, the 6 forbidden areas of the Immortal Tribulation sect would become the 5 forbidden areas. The latter two also felt that today's matter had gotten out of hand. They originally wanted to kill Jiang Xiu to settle the matter. Now, not to mention killing him, the master of the forbidden area was killed, and the inheritance was stolen. They were definitely going to be punished. Losing the inheritance was a crime that even the sect master couldn't bear. Not to mention they were only elders. Their faces were ashen. It was over. Hua Yufeng said. My Tribulation Immortal sect was indeed in the wrong in this matter. Sect Master Jiang, we apologize to you here. We were too reckless just now. Even if you don't give us face, Elder Shui is your friend. Just consider it as giving him face. When Shui Wuyao was mentioned, Jiang Xiu became even angrier. Suing was also trembling with anger. Now that they knew Shui Wuyao was an elder of the sect, they would rather he stay crazy forever. They would torture him and steal his sword spirit. When they needed him, they would bring out his identity. Jiang Xiu said coldly. Who said Shui Wuyao would definitely ask this sovereign to return the inheritance to you? Who knows, he might even clap and praise this sovereign for doing well. Jiang Xiu's words made the faces of everyone in the Immortal Tribulation sect turn ugly. Although Jiang Xiu's words were unpleasant to hear, it was possible. If Shui Wuyao woke up, he would probably go crazy again after seeing what the elders of the sect had done to him, and the attitude of the sect towards this matter. Hua Yufeng said with a bitter face. But it's also possible that Elder Shui would ask Sect Master Jiang to return the inheritance. How about this? We'll arrange for you to stay in the sect. Immortal Dr. Ji will treat you. If you wake up, Elder Shui will decide. Jiang Xiu could say no. If he wanted to take Shui Wuyao away, no one here could stop him. However, if he really did that, Shui Wuyao would be in the most difficult position. He had already gone crazy for himself for a while, and even suffered such humiliation. Jiang Xiu didn't want to make things difficult for him a second time. He muttered, then this sovereign will stay for now. Hua Yufeng saw Jiang Xiu agree, and let out a sigh of relief. As long as the inheritance was left in the sect, there would be a chance. He said, that's good. Then I ask Sect Master Jiang and everyone to move. Jiang Xiu then left the forbidden grounds. Ji Wuhua and Suing brought Shui Wuyao and followed closely behind. Sect Master, that's the sect's inheritance. How can we let? Elder Yu said halfway when Hua Yufeng angrily said, shut up. Haven't you caused enough trouble? Elder Yu helplessly shut his mouth. Hua Yufeng's gaze was uncertain. He said, Jiang Luoxia definitely won't let you go. Even if he's willing to return the inheritance, you won't have a good ending. At this moment, we must think of a way to snatch the inheritance. All the elders present nodded in agreement. They didn't want to lose the 2 elders and also didn't want to lose the inheritance. Hua Yufeng's stalling was to stabilize Jiang Xiu. All the elders' eyes flashed with a gloomy light. Jiang Xiu moved to Shui Wuyao's palace. No one had cleaned this place for 60 years, and it was very messy. The disciples hurriedly cleaned up the place while Ji Wuhua began treating Shui Wuyao's illness. The crystal in Jiang Xiu's hand never left his body. Immortal Dr. Ji, how long will it take? Ji Wuhua replied. The fastest is 2 months. Chapter 742. On this side, Ji Wuhua had officially started treating Shui Wuyao's illness. Of course, some of the basic herbs couldn't be harvested by herself, so as to avoid the Immortal Tribulation sect taking action against her. This task fell on Su Ying's shoulders, while Jiang Xiu held onto the crystal stones and cultivated. Su Ying looked at the bright starry sky and let out a long sigh. Her eyes revealed an intoxicated sadness. Today's matter could be said to have hurt her deeply. A sect to an immortal cultivator was like a family to a mortal. How could she not be bitterly disappointed when her family treated her and her adoptive father like this? Why are you here alone? Su Ying looked back and said nervously, Sect Master Jiang. Then she looked inside the sect and asked, How is my father? Jiang Xiu sized her up and said, Immortal Dr. Ji is treating him. You don't have to worry. Oh. She also believed that Shui Wuyao would be fine. His illness wasn't particularly serious. It was just that the vile people of the sect pushed him into the abyss of hell. Her eyes dimmed once again. After father wakes up, we don't know how we'll survive in the Immortal Tribulation sect. This time, they had offended quite a number of people, from the sect master to the disciples. Since they couldn't find trouble with Jiang Xiu, they would probably vent their anger on the father and daughter duo. One could imagine how their days would be, especially when Shui Wuyao found out that he was abused by his fellow sect members. With his arrogance, he couldn't accept it. A king couldn't be humiliated. If he couldn't accept it and made a scene, then he wouldn't be able to get along with his fellow sect members. Jiang Xiu said, You don't have to worry about this. It's not your fault. Some people, in order to protect their sect's strength, would turn a blind eye to the actions of those so-called immortal kings. They didn't know that this was not the way to control one's subordinates. If it were Jiang Xiu, he would rather lose part of his sect's strength than easily persecute his fellow sect members. But Hua Yufeng shouldn't be such a person. From his attitude at that time, it could be seen that he wanted to protect those two immortal kings. As for Jiang Xiu, it wasn't that he didn't want to kill the two of them. If Jiang Xiu wanted to kill them, it would be easy for him to do so. However, he wanted to keep the two of them alive for Shui Wuyao to personally take revenge. I'm just worried that it'll be difficult for father after he wakes up. Jiang Xiu coldly said. How hard can it be? Towards those who persecute themselves and scheme to steal the sword spirit, there is only one word to describe them. Kill them. As for those who are coerced into following them, kill them. Su Ying said. Sect Master Jiang is a great hero, a great hero. His natural disposition is free and easy. We are only mediocre people. Just now, when I went to the Immortal Medical Pavilion to get some medicine, I actually met a few senior martial sisters who were old friends with me. It's like I've become a traitor. Jiang Xiu looked at Su Ying, whose eyes were dim. For the sake of the mist, she had paid a huge price. At the end, she thought that she had received spring, but she did not expect that the result would be like this. For a full 60 years, the fellow disciple whom she had been thinking about, the senior sister of the same sect whom she had been thinking about, had regarded her as a traitor. This feeling was indeed very uncomfortable. Xiaoying, the yellow dragon grass is gone. Ji Wuhua's voice came from the palace. Oh, I'll go get it now. Jiang Xiu reached out to stop her and said, It's better for me to go. So that Su Ying would not be humiliated again if she met her senior martial sister. But father and immortal Dr. Ji, Jiang Xiu said, It's fine. I can tell anyone who enters here. No one can make things difficult for your father and Fairy Ji under my eyes. Su Ying nodded in relief after hearing this. Jiang Xiu flew towards the Immortal Medical Pavilion. The starry sky of the Immortal Tribulation sect was exceptionally beautiful at night. The sky was dotted with stars, and bright lights were lit everywhere in the sect. The Immortal Tribulation sect was probably 3 times larger than Tianqing School. The number of disciples was also 7 or 8 times larger, possibly reaching 1 million. 1 million immortal cultivators, placed anywhere, was a powerful force. As the saying goes, quantity leads to qualitative change. If there was a large-scale formation, its power would be enough to kill an immortal king, or even stronger. With the inheritance of the Immortal Tribulation sect, there should be hundreds of thousands or even millions of disciples. However, large-scale formations certainly had their weaknesses, which was that they were clumsy and did not know how to cultivate. Each disciple was busy with their own cultivation, and did not have time to gather together to cultivate this thing. Tianqing School also had a similar formation, although the number of disciples was far less than the Immortal Tribulation sects. It was not that they had not practiced together before. That day when they faced the Taihua sect, they also made a move, but they could not display its power at all. Unless they knew in advance that a great enemy was coming, everyone in the sect would practice together. Jiang, Sect Master Jiang. Seeing Jiang Xiu's arrival, the disciples of the Immortal Medical Pavilion trembled in fear. Jiang Luoxia's name was like thunder in their ears. Today's battle had made everyone in the Immortal Tribulation sect angry, but they were also convinced. These disciples were so scared that their legs turned to jelly when they saw him. Get the yellow dragon grass for me. Jiang Xiu was not afraid of her adulterating or drugging. With Ji Wuhua, the top immortal doctor, no one could fool her. Yes. As Sect Master Jiang. Why are you here? Suddenly, a voice drifted over. Jiang Xiu turned around and saw a girl around 16 or 17 years old. She was wearing a snow-white robe, revealing her slender waist. Her face was beautiful, and her feet were as white as jade. Her toes were as clear as crystal, and when they landed on the ground, they spread out slightly. There was also a red band around her ankle. This girl could only be found in the heavens. This little girl is Yangling. The elders of the sect all call me Fourth Mother. If Sect Master Jiang does not mind, you can also call me Fourth Mother. The members of the Immortal Martial sect were able to accept the term mother, and even felt close to it. However, it was a little difficult for Jiang Xiu to accept it. Mother, in his mind, this term was equivalent to mother. Calling her Fourth Mother was like calling his father's fourth concubine. And Jiang Xiu coldly replied, disapproving of his words. Sect Master Jiang, this trip is for, Jiang Xiu said, the yellow dragon grass. That disciple ran over and said, Sect Master Jiang, the yellow dragon grass has been used up. There is not a single stalk left. Can you wait until tomorrow morning so that I can go to the medicinal valley to pick some earlier? Normally, they would not pick herbs at night, but there were some special herbs that could only be picked at night. However, it was more of a taboo. Any sparks would be too big of a threat to the medicinal garden. Jiang Xiu's face turned cold. You want me to wait? Seeing this, that disciple was shocked. Yang Xinyang, who was beside him, said, if Sect Master Jiang is in a hurry, Xinyang will bring you to pick them. This disciple does not have the authority to do so. Yang Xinyang seemed to be an elder of the Immortal Tribulation sect. Since her cultivation was at the Immortal King realm, she should be an elder. Lead the way. There were many small thatched huts in the medicinal valley. However, after night fell, there were not many people, other than those who were guarding the distant garden. The medicinal herbs sparkled brilliantly as far as the eye could see. It was indescribably beautiful. After passing through the entrance and entering the depths of the medicinal valley, everything became quiet. The sky was very deep, as if one could reach out and pluck the stars. The person in front was wearing thin clothes, the lapels of her clothes fluttering in the wind. Jiang Xiu asked. A delicate fragrance wafted into his nose. This fragrance was rather similar to begonia flowers. Could this be the fragrance of this fairy's body? He immediately became vigilant. Did you ask about the fragrance? Yang Xinyang said. Of course I smell it. This is the medicinal valley. There are medicinal fragrances everywhere. Jiang Xiu said, it's not medicinal. It's a fragrance similar to begonia flowers. This fragrance is very strange. Jiang Xiu reached out and grabbed Yang Xinyang's wrist. The latter cried out in surprise and turned her head. Jiang Xiu was stunned, because at this moment, Yang Xinyang's clear and otherworldly eyes were bloodshot. Her cheeks were filled with sparkling tears. She was actually crying. What are you? Yang Xinyang's tears fell like rain, but she kept shaking her head. Don't ask. I won't tell. Jiang Xiu felt more and more strange. Something was wrong with Yang Xinyang's situation. The soft hand that was grabbed by Jiang Xiu was faintly burning. Hold your breath. Don't breathe in the fragrance. Yang Xinyan's beautiful hair was messed up by the wind. She said weakly, Sect Master Jiang, Xinyan has no strength. Help me. There's a thatched hut in front. Let's go there and rest. Yang Xinyan's body was limp. She had no strength at all. She could not even lift her arms. Jiang Xiu could only support her as they walked into the hut. However, Jiang Xiu was very confident. He did not think that any medicine would be effective on Jiang Luoxia. It could be said that the skilled were bold. An enticing fragrance wafted into his nose. Chapter 743. This was an almost abandoned house. It was dilapidated, as if no one had set foot here for a long time. After the two of them entered, Yang Xinyang said, Sect Master Jiang, I don't have any strength left. Her voice was soft and delicate. Jiang Xiu also realized that something was wrong. Just as he was about to speak, he felt Yang Xinyang very close to him. The room was dark and blurry, but he could vaguely make out her figure. In a daze, he only felt that her fragrance was very pleasant. It was the fragrance of begonia flowers, mixed with Yang Xinyang's body fragrance. It entered Jiang Xiu's nostrils, and even with his willpower, he couldn't help but take a few more breaths. He reached out to cover Yang Xinyang's mouth and nose. Jiang Xiu thought highly of himself and felt that no medicine could affect him. However, Yang Xinyang was different. If she was drugged, it would be troublesome. Therefore, he covered Yang Xinyang's mouth and nose. It was warm and soft to the touch, and he said, Don't breathe. It would have been better if he didn't say it. Once he said it, Yang Xinyang went limp in Jiang Xiu's arms. Her whole body felt strange and her face was hot. She wanted to sit up, but she couldn't move. Her body was soft. Sect Master Jiang Xinyang can't move. Jiang Xiu's body was also hot, and his mind was rippling. What's wrong with you? He was shocked, and thought that something was wrong. What are you doing? Yang Xinyang's delicate body twisted slightly, and her voice was soft. I think because of you. I fell sick. My body is burning up. Jiang Xiu thought to himself, how could I possibly make you sick? Don't let go, Xinyang can't stand, support Xinyang. How was this supporting? She was sticking close to Jiang Xiu just now, and Jiang Xiu felt that it was inappropriate, so he moved away a little. This meant that they had to stick close to each other. When Jiang Xiu heard it, he felt an indescribable gentleness, and felt his blood boil. Why are you like this? Can't you support Xinyang a little? Her voice was soft, half pleading and half reproaching. Jiang Xiu felt that the other party had probably been drugged. Things were not looking good for him, but he firmly believed that he could stand his ground. Even so, he did not panic at all. Even though Jiang Xiu would not feel too much of a psychological burden if he really did something, it would not be good for Yang Xinyang. After all, she was a girl. Moreover, his consciousness was already blurred and he was no longer clear-headed. Suddenly, she let out a soft gasp. Her body trembled as she pressed herself against Jiang Xiu's chest. Fourth mother is going to die. Fourth mother is going to die. Boom. Jiang Xiu's mind completely exploded and went blank. How did he die? Yang Xinyang turned her hand over and grabbed Jiang Xiu's wrist tightly. Who said she didn't have any strength? She still had a lot of strength. However, she was still breathing heavily as she said, I'm going to die because of you, I'm going to die. Jiang Xiu was about to speak, but his neck was hooked. Her head came closer, and her voice was like a dream. So comfortable, so comfortable. A voice as soft as cotton drifted over. Jiang Xiu only felt that it was like the sound of nature. He could not see her face clearly in the darkness, but the image of her crying face appeared in his mind. Her breath was heavy, and he could feel the heat and fragrance of her red lips. Fourth mother is going to die. Jiang Xiu thought back to everything that happened just now. There didn't seem to be anything wrong with it. He smelled the scent of begonia, a kind of blood-red begonia. It did have a very strong medicinal effect, but he was sure that he could completely resist it. Even the immortal king realm was not a problem, but why was it so strange? Yang Xinyang was definitely not a loose person. If she was, she would not be so pure. It must be because of the medicine, but would begonia make her lose control? At this moment, Jiang Xiu still maintained a little bit of rationality. Everything was very strange, and he thought that it was very likely that it was a scheme of the Immortal Tribulation sect. If he really did sully Yang Xingyang and took her pure body, when they transmigrated, Jiang Xiu would not be able to defend himself even if he was innocent. No matter how shameless a scumbag was, he would probably have to admit it when he encountered such a situation. When the time came, if the other party wanted to ask for the inheritance, Jiang Xiu would not be able to say anything. At least, Jiang Xiu would not be able to face Yang Xingyang. Sect leader Jiang, what are you waiting for? Of course, you can get any woman you want, but this woman is different. She is not someone you can get just because you want to. There are countless people who covet her. She has a special physique that is hard to come by in 1,000 years, the 7 Immortals physique. A voice came from afar. We have created this opportunity for you, so you have to grasp it well. The 7 Immortals Yuan Yin is an extinct treasure. Many immortal cultivators dream of it, and enjoy it to the extreme. 7 Immortals physique, begonia flower. Jiang Xiu had read in an ancient book that people with the 7 Immortals physique could not touch the fragrance of begonia flower. Once they did, there would be a reaction. Their body fragrance and the fragrance of begonia flower would merge into one, and that would be fatal. Not good, Jiang Xiu secretly cursed. At this moment, his consciousness was blurred, and only a trace of clarity was left. He knew that he was about to fall into the trap. After a while, he would not be able to control himself anymore. At that time he would be worse than a beast. At that moment, if the other party wanted to steal the inheritance, he would kill him if he wanted to. He was afraid that he would let them do whatever they wanted. It's so hot. Yang Xingyang's voice was extremely soft and uncomfortable. Her hands tore open her clothes. It's over. Once the mind was lost, everything would be too late. Just like now, Yang Xingyang had completely lost her mind. She only wanted to feel comfortable, and she kept pestering Jiang Xiu. Jiang Xiu knew that if he did not think of a way, the result would be death. Whoosh! A ball of flame rose from the dim thatched cottage. It was the supreme escape technique of the Heavenly Motion sect, the Heavenly Fire Traversing Heaven technique. Nothing in the vicinity could escape the eyes of the Immortal Tribulation sect. However, once Jiang Xiu went far away, the mist would shake, and the safety of Ji Wuhua and the others would be lost. Not good, Jiang Luoxiao escaped with Elder Yang. After the flame exploded, the pattern in the cottage turned dark. They had already left. Lock onto the position. The tracking experts in the Immortal Tribulation sect acted immediately. In fact, they had already set up an inescapable trap. However, if a celestial king, especially one at the level of Jiang Xiu, wanted to escape, even if they did their homework, it would not be so easy to stop him. The east. No, it's the west. No, it's in the southwest. Hua Yufeng was furious. Where is he? These people were known as the best tracking experts in the Immortal Tribulation sect, but they could not even determine the position. It was a disgrace to the Immortal Tribulation sect. He's too fast. He continuously used the escape technique and constantly changed his position. He's an expert in preventing tracking, one of them explained. Hua Yufeng sighed. He had nowhere to vent his anger. It was not that his subordinates were too incompetent, but that Jiang Luoxiao was too strong. Even the master of the Forbidden Grounds, many of the elders, were helpless. It was not surprising that they could not track him. It was just that he had overestimated the medicinal properties of the 7 Immortals begonia, or underestimated Jiang Xiu's determination. Under such circumstances, he still managed to escape in such an orderly manner. As the saying goes, even if you die under the peony skirt, you will still be a romantic ghost. Shouldn't a man completely lose his mind at this time? He escaped by himself. Isn't he afraid that we'll attack Ji Wuhua and Shui Wuyao? Hua Yufeng said angrily. We're in trouble now. We wasted the 7 Immortals' vital yin, and still can't take down Jiang Luoxia. When he turns back, we may be in trouble. An elder on the side said with a frown. Everyone present sighed in sorrow. Right now we can't just sit and wait for death. Although Jiang Luoxia may not really care about Shui Wuyao, Ji Wuhua, and the others, we'd better take them down first. At least, we'll have the capital to negotiate with Jiang Luoxia. Although Hua Yufeng disdained this kind of behavior, he had already betrayed an elder. There was no need to talk about the bottom line. For the sake of the sect's inheritance, he did not care about his face anymore. Alright, we can only do this now. Go take down Ji Wuhua. We must capture Jiang Luoxia before the medicinal properties of the begonia disappear. This is the most important thing. We can't bet on Jiang Xiu's kindness. Yes. As the sound of his voice faded, the tracking expert continued to lock onto Jiang Xiu's location, while the other group of people rushed towards Ji Wuhua's location. One must know that Ji Wuhua wasn't someone easy to deal with. They could easily capture her. She was also an immortal king, and according to the legends of the immortal martial continent, in order to kill an immortal king, it would require at least 4 immortal kings to act together. Sometimes, capturing an immortal king alive was even harder than killing the target. The safest method was to mobilize 5 immortal kings. Chapter 744. The 5 immortal king elders of the Immortal Tribulation sect immediately rushed to the water mist hall. Ji Wuhua was adjusting the medicine when she suddenly frowned. She felt several powerful auras coming from outside. Suing also felt that something was wrong. In the next moment, she saw several streaks of light entering the hall and landing, turning into 5 elders. Ji Wuhua said, "Don't blame me for not warning you elders. Once you break in, Sect Master Jiang will immediately sense it. With his nature, he will not let you off easily." One of the elders said, "You are Shui Wuyao's adopted daughter. This elder advises you to save your breath. Jiang Luoxia can't even protect himself now." Suing said, "Nonsense, you are not a match for Sect Master Jiang at all." Ji Wuhua and Suing had a bad feeling in their hearts. With Jiang Xiu's speed, he should have returned the moment these people arrived. However, he did not appear and these people did not seem to be in a hurry at all. That person chuckled. No one is invincible in this world. As long as one is human, they will have weaknesses and be defeated. Moreover, Jiang Luoxia is far from being as strong as you think. He slowly walked over. Although his expression was gloomy, he was not in a hurry. "What? Do you want us to make a move, or do you want to obediently surrender?" At this moment, Jiang Xiu still had not arrived. Ji Wuhua and Suing understood that something must have happened to Jiang Xiu. Their expressions could not help but change. Although Ji Wuhua was an immortal king, she was not a combat type. Dealing with one immortal king was already difficult for her, let alone facing so many immortal kings. There was not much difference between resisting and not resisting. If you want us to bow our heads, that will depend on whether you have the strength. Hearing this, the elder of the Immortal Tribulation sect coldly snorted. He was extremely disdainful of this. How much combat strength could an immortal doctor have? Just as he was about to speak, he saw Ji Wuhua chanting. She spread her hand forward and a green light appeared in her palm. Then a square object could be seen. As it spun out, it constantly grew larger. After a moment, the true appearance could be seen. It was the square cauldron. "Go." She threw the bronze square cauldron into the air. Then Ji Wuhua chanted the incantation again. She had practiced this incantation no less than 10,000 times. She was already very familiar with it. Roar! A bestial roar resounded, and a cloud of thick black smoke swept out. Suddenly, the entire hall was filled with black wind, blowing so hard that people couldn't open their eyes. A terrifying and suffocating aura was faintly discernible in the black smoke. Yen Sulong. The 5 elders on the other side turned pale with fright. It was the first time they had seen such a terrifying demonic aura. Especially the appearance of the strange skeletal skin all over his body, which made it impossible for them to see through his roots. "If you want to capture us, you have to get past him first." Ji Wuhua was very calm. Jiang Xiu was indeed stronger than Yen Shilong, but Jiang Xiu had his own humanity. He was not as terrifying as Yen Shilong. Roar! Yen Shilong roared furiously at the 5 people. His imposing manner was extremely terrifying. "Evil beast!" The white-haired and white-bearded elder in black robe scolded angrily. He pointed his finger and a sword art appeared. A golden light flashed in the void and rushed towards Yen Shilong in a flash. It went straight for his head. Yen Shilong roared furiously, and the sound waves rippled out violently. Black smoke billowed in the hall, forming rings of smoke. At the same time, black runes emerged bit by bit. Boom, 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 boom. Looking from outside the hall, one could see the violent explosion of energy. It was like an explosion in a room. The 5 immortal kings were sent flying by the shockwave. In a mountain range somewhere, Jiang Xiu didn't know where he was anymore. After executing his movement technique, he subconsciously lost track of his position. But he was sure that the people from the Tribulation Immortal sect wouldn't be able to find him. At this moment, his nose was filled with the fragrance of the 7-star begonia. It was getting stronger and stronger, to the point that it was intoxicating. The blood in his body surged like a broken dam as he looked at the person in his arms. He thought of Cheng Lingran, Nangong Ko or Zhao Rong. It seemed like all of them were, but they weren't. He only felt that they were very beautiful. She wriggled like a bug. Yang Xinyang's snow-white robe revealed her exquisite and sexy figure as she wriggled. It was an unfathomable mystery to Jiang Xiu. Her hair was disheveled, and her entire body was drenched in sweat. The sweat of the 7 immortals' physique mixed with the fragrance of begonia, and the beads of sweat emitted a soul-stirring smell. Her beautiful face was flushed, and her eyes were blurred. She couldn't help but let out a soft moan from her lips. It seemed like she was in pain, but also seemed like she was in pleasure. Good man. Yang Xinyang's pretty face was as charming as a ripe peach. Although she seemed to be a little resistant, and subconsciously wanted to protect her innocence, the expression on her face made people feel that she was willing to let him do whatever he wanted. Jiang Xiu's rationality completely collapsed at this moment. He suddenly grabbed Yang Xinyang with one hand. Are we going to die? Yang Xinyang's eyes were almost dripping with tears. She was no longer immortal King Qing Xiu. Die, we're going to die. Jiang Xiu didn't need to, but Yang Xinyang kept crying out. The night sky outside was unusually quiet. The stars were twinkling, and the forest in the mountain swayed gently with the breeze. The wind in the mountain gradually became stronger. It kept blowing against the branches, causing them to bend as if they were about to break. The sound of the wind blowing against the leaves was soft, like a soft moan. It even had a hint of a sobbing tone. This caused the wind to blow even more fiercely. Yang Xinyang's eyes were blurred. She vaguely saw an unfamiliar man. Her mind was full of holes, and she could only feel her body trembling slightly. The spring night was exceptionally moving. It would faintly evoke a bit of tiredness. One would want to fall asleep, but at the same time, one would want to be half asleep and half awake. It was as if the entire person had flown up to the clouds, but also as if the person had fallen from the clouds. This feeling pervaded the entire body. She had heard people say it before. She had heard people say it a long time ago. However, because of her cultivation, she had never fallen in love with anyone. Slowly, she became pure and had few desires. As her status became higher, this kind of thing became further and further away from her. However, she would occasionally think of it. I am fine. Ooh. Her mind was in a mess. She didn't know what she was thinking, and she couldn't remember. What are you doing? Her voice was trembling. It was weak and extremely soft. Jiang Xiu was a first-class man of action. He didn't say anything. The 7 immortals' begonia had already made him completely lose his mind. Fortunately, he had strong willpower. He only lost consciousness after escaping from the immortal tribulation sect. The wind didn't stop for the entire night. It was sometimes fast, sometimes slow. Yang Xinyang was in a daze. She was extremely sleepy. She closed her eyes and slept well. In the end, she still didn't give up and said, I'm dead because of you. She felt as if she was really dead. She didn't move anymore. Only water droplets fell from the corners of her eyes. She didn't know if they were tears or sweat. The sun shone from the sky. There was water flowing by her ears. Jiang Xiu opened his eyes slightly and turned his head. He saw that the person beside him had also woken up. She was curled up like a frightened rabbit. When she met Jiang Xiu's gaze, her clear eyes became extremely sharp. He was a little embarrassed. Are you okay? Although she had lost consciousness, everything that happened was very clear. Even Yu Yin was there. Yang Xinyang looked at Jiang Xiu with a gaze as sharp as a knife. However, When Jiang Xiu looked at her, she actually blushed and immediately turned her head away. She was actually wearing Jiang Xiu's robe. Beside her were pieces of clothes scattered on the ground. It turned out that her clothes had been torn and couldn't be worn anymore. Even her undergarments were torn. When Jiang Xiu looked at her again, her dark eyes were even more unsettled. Yang Xingyang no longer had the demeanor of an elder. She was so flustered that she didn't even dare to look at him. Although she was an elder of the Immortal Tribulation sect, an immortal king, and had been cured of the begonia poison, how could she dare to look directly at the boy who had done that with her? She really hoped that last night was a dream. However, she knew that it was impossible. She had already lost her 7 immortals in yuan. Jiang Xiu felt that the atmosphere was very awkward. However, he couldn't find a topic to talk about. That Xinyang. He couldn't even be sure if her name was Sanyang or Xinyang. Chapter 745. Not only did Yang Xinyang not turn her head to look at him, she even turned her face away, refusing to look at him. Jiang Xiu said, "Then are you okay?" He vaguely remembered her begging him last night. This was a trap set up by the Immortal Tribulation sect, so Jiang Xiu did not feel much guilt. If he had not made a prompt decision, he might have died without a complete corpse. However, from Yang Xinyang's tear-stained face last night, it could be seen that she was not willing, but was forced by the sect's pressure. Moreover, she was a girl after all. No matter what, Jiang Xiu had taken advantage of her. Last night, he had indeed enjoyed himself to the fullest. At this moment, Yang Xinyang used his loose robe to wrap her delicate body, which was faintly discernible, to make one's imagination run wild. She moved her lips and said in a very low voice, "Sect Master Jiang, after obtaining my 7 immortals' vital yin, your cultivation has greatly increased. Can you return the forbidden inheritance to the Immortal Tribulation sect?" Hearing her say this, Jiang Xiu remembered the earth crystal and was shocked. This crystal had always been in his hand for cultivation, but after he went crazy last night, he did not know where it went. After looking around, he found that it was placed on a rock beside him. It should have been placed there by someone else. Other than himself, there was only Yang Xinyang. She had clearly obtained the inheritance and could have picked it up and left. She could even be more ruthless and kill him, the scourge of the Immortal Tribulation sect, but she did not do so. After saying this, she turned her face away again. Jiang Xiu did not know that Yang Xinyang's current state of mind was far more complicated than he could imagine. When she woke up, Yang Xinyang had indeed thought of killing Jiang Luoxia. She had even almost pierced Jiang Xiu's throat with her sword, but she could not bring herself to do it when faced with a stranger who had taken her virginity. In the end, she lost her soul. Jiang Xiu violated her, but Jiang Xiu didn't do it on purpose. In fact, all of this was arranged by the sect. In fact, they had even communicated with her before this. The sect elders had thought of everything, and this was the only way to succeed. She had thought of rejecting the sect, but the Immortal Tribulation sect had raised her, and she had never repaid them. It was the responsibility of every disciple of the Immortal Tribulation sect to take back the immortal sect's inheritance. She nodded tearfully. Yang Xinyang turned her face to the side. Her clear black and white eyes matched with her elegant face was indeed stunningly beautiful. She was in a daze and at a loss. At this moment, her heart was filled with helplessness. She slowly closed her eyes, but tears once again fell from her eyes. Jiang Xiu's heart was also very complicated. He knew that it was a trap, but Yang Xinyang was innocent. He should be the one suffering the most. The Immortal Tribulation sect treated Shui Wuyao like that, and even plotted against me. How can I be willing to return the earth crystal so easily? Inside was the complete law of the earth, which was extremely important to Jiang Xiu. Tears rolled down Yang Xinyang's cheeks. She was sad and indignant. Jiang Xiu was silent for a moment, then said, "But I will give you an explanation." Explanation? Yang Xinyang did not turn her head. What explanation? Jiang Xiu said, "You can come back to Tianqing school with me." Yang Xinyang's face revealed a strange expression. She really wanted to curse this bastard for being too shameless. She had never seen such a shameless person. Not only did he take her virginity, he also wanted to pick up an immortal king for free. In his dreams, he took all the good things in the world. Yang Xingyang said coldly, "Do you think I'm as ignorant as other girls? Do you think I have to go with you just because you took my body?" Jiang Xiu was stunned. He smiled bitterly and said, "Don't misunderstand, Xingyang. That's not what I meant. I just want." Yang Xingyang turned around and said with tears streaming down her face, "If you want to return the sex inheritance, then return it. If you don't want to, then I can't force you. Just pretend that nothing happened last night. From now on you are you and I am me. We have nothing to do with each other." She immediately stood up. Her robe was too big and hung on her delicate body. She furrowed her brows and was about to leave when Jiang Xiu sighed and said, "When Shui Wuyao recovers, this matter will be over. At that time, I will return the inheritance of the Forbidden Grounds." At that time, Jiang Xiu should have more or less comprehended the earth element's great perfection. Originally he wanted to break the seal and steal the inheritance, but now he thought about it and decided not to. "Are you serious?" The wind blew, blowing her robe up. Her slender thighs were exposed, and she hurriedly reached out to pull them up. Jiang Xiu thought to himself, how conservative. On earth, what's the big deal about showing off your thighs? When summer comes, the streets will be full of them, and no one will look. Suddenly he reached out and pulled. Yang Xingyang cried out in surprise and fell into his arms. She was so shocked that she didn't know what to do. She wanted to struggle, but Jiang Xiu said, "Do you still want the Forbidden Land's inheritance?" Yang Xingyang turned around, not daring to look at him. "Of course I want it. You just agreed to return it." "That came with a condition." The condition was self-evident. Yang Xingyang secretly cursed, "Bastard." The fire beside them was bright. Jiang Xiu had started a fire. The fire was burning fiercely, and the wood crackled. The fire made the cave very warm. It was already night time. "When can I leave?" Jiang Xiu realized that the power in his body had increased by a lot, especially his understanding of the law of earth. Especially when he was doing it with Xingyang, his cultivation had improved by leaps and bounds. As expected of the 7 immortal physique, Jiang Xiu was sure that if he cultivated, the effect would be better. However, if he cultivated, he wouldn't have the talent of a Protoss who could do so many things at the same time. "Stay for a few more days." Yang Xingyang was dumbfounded. She felt that half of her life was gone. "Stay for a few more days," Jiang Xiu said. "It's better than going back to the Immortal Tribulation sect and calling you over every few days." According to Jiang Xiu's calculations, with the help of Xingyang's 7 immortal physique, the law of earth would be perfect in a few days. Yang Xingyang said, "I've been out for so long. The sect must be in chaos. It's better to go back as soon as possible." Jiang Xiu said, "Stay for a few more days, and I'll return the inheritance to you." This was supposed to be a happy thing, but in Yang Xingyang's ears, it had a different meaning. She felt like she had become a prostitute in a brothel, but she couldn't refuse. She finally understood what it meant to have no choice. She cursed under her breath. "Animal. You won't go back on your word when the time comes, right?" Jiang Xiu said, "With our relationship, do you think I'd lie to you? If a man is reliable, he'll be a tree." Her seniors and senior sisters had taught her this when she was very young. Jiang Xiu was speechless. "Don't scold me like that. I swear on my integrity." Yang Xingyang snorted contemptuously. "Your integrity? Humph, there's no good person in your Tianqing school, especially you. What integrity do you have?" Once a man and a woman had that kind of relationship, there would be less fear between them. Moreover, Yang Xingyang really didn't like Jiang Xiu. Why would she like to see an animal? Prejudice. There were indeed some schemers in the Tianqing school, and he had tried his best to get rid of them. Whether it was the Ji Dao sect or Elder Qianjian, they were all magnanimous people. However, the sect master and elders of the Immortal Tribulation sect were disgusted by Jiang Xiu. They even asked Yang Xingyang to sacrifice herself for the sect. No matter how bad the Tianqing school is, it's still better than your Immortal Tribulation sect. Jiang Luoxia, don't be so arrogant. Didn't you just kill the master of one of my Immortal Tribulation sect's forbidden areas? Yang Xingyang frowned and said, "The Immortal Tribulation sect has 6 forbidden areas. You won by luck, but do you dare say that you can defeat the master of a second forbidden area? If you really piss off my Immortal Tribulation sect, all 5 forbidden area masters will attack together. You'll only end up dead." Jiang Xiu admitted that winning the master of a forbidden area was partly due to luck. If all 5 forbidden area masters of the Immortal Tribulation sect attacked together, he really wouldn't have a chance of winning. "What are you looking at?" Yang Xingyang saw that he wasn't speaking and was staring at her. "You're exposed." "Ah, bastard." After a long time, Jiang Xiu said, "The current Immortal Tribulation sect really doesn't look like a big sect. Look at how they treat Shui Wuyao, and then look at how they treat you. Xingyang, this matter is over. Why don't you come back to Tianqing School with me?" Yang Xingyang's eyes were filled with confusion. She was very dissatisfied with the sect master's handling of Shui Wuyao's matter. At the same time, she felt a chill in her heart. She thought about how the sect would treat her if she was seriously injured or lost her cultivation one day. In reality, her cultivation was still there, but she had already made such a huge sacrifice. Be honest with your hands. Chapter 746. The inside of the cave was extremely quiet. Amidst the smoke from the bonfire, Jiang Xiu had already fallen asleep. Yang Xingyang secretly opened her eyes. Although her mouth was still stubborn, she did not dare to look at Jiang Xiu. She only felt that her heart was about to leap out of her throat. Her mind was filled with all sorts of random thoughts. Suddenly, she heard Jiang Xiu whisper, "Are you peeking at me?" Yang Xingyang's face turned red. "I'm not peeking at you." Jiang Xiu said, "Come back to Tianqing School with me. I'll let you look at me however you want." "Bah." Yang Xingyang spat. "Who wants to look at you? You're the most shameless sect leader I've ever seen. If that's really the case, then you're a prostitute." Jiang Xiu said, "Don't humiliate yourself like that. If you sleep with a prostitute, then what will you become? A slut seeking pleasure?" "You humph." Yang Xingyang's face was very delicate, but her figure was quite voluptuous. Jiang Xiu was deeply moved. If she did not have the 7 celestial physique, she would have been able to cultivate charm techniques. "What are you doing?" Yang Xingyang's beautiful face lost her voice. "Practicing martial arts." Xingyang secretly cursed her own fate in her heart. How did she meet such a fiend? He even had to find a dignified reason to bully others. He was really hateful to the extreme. She didn't know how cute and hateful she looked when she was clenching her teeth. Her waist moved slightly, her buttocks moved slightly, swaying gracefully. Her heart was beating rapidly. "Don't move, be good." Yang Xingyang was about to struggle, but when she heard sect leader Zhang's mighty and domineering voice, she immediately became obedient. She took one last peek and hurriedly closed her eyes. It was a pity that she could not see clearly after a few tries. Jiang Xiu seemed to be sitting on clouds, soft and fluffy, like rippling water. "Come back to Tianqing School with me." At this moment, Yang Xingyang could no longer hear anything. Her voice trembled. Where? Tianqing School. Fourth Mother's mind was clear this time. "I'm not a 3-year-old child. I'm not that easy to fool. Are you going or not?" Fourth Mother's mind was confused once again. A strange feeling rushed from her back to the top of her head. Then, her flesh exploded in her mind, causing her entire body to tremble nonstop. "Are you going?" "Wherever you go, I'll follow." When Fourth Mother said those words in a daze, she couldn't believe that she had said those words. She was so embarrassed that her whole body started to tremble, as if she was about to spasm. I didn't say anything," Jiang Xiu said. "I already heard it." "That doesn't count," Jiang Xiu said. "As a celestial king, you must keep your word." For a long time, Fourth Mother did not answer. When he remembered that she was the immortal king of the Immortal Tribulation sect, and that she was a weapon sent to deal with him, Jiang Xiu felt a special excitement and pleasure in his bones. "Answer me, do you want to come to my Tianqing School?" Fourth Mother said. I won't say," Jiang Xiu smiled. She didn't refuse, but said that she wouldn't say it. This meant that her heart was no longer as firm as before. Although he didn't succeed with Chung Lingran, he wasn't far from success with Fourth Mother. It was indeed that thing that led to a woman's heart. Let me hear you call me sect master. I won't. After a few days, he had completely comprehended the laws within the crystal. After calculating the time, it was less than 3 million years. This was largely due to Fourth Mother's body. Firstly, it could speed up the process of cultivation. Secondly, the concealment of heaven's secrets was not that strong against special people. It could be said that it was a natural selection. Jiang Xiu successfully reached the great perfection of the law of earth. Of course, his cultivation had soared by a lot. Now he was only one step away from establishing the God-sealing monument. Jiang Xiu's divine deity and his natal divine weapon faintly resonated, and their positions were constantly getting closer. This step of his was the last step to the great perfection of the law of fire. If he comprehended it on his own, the concealment of heaven's secrets would reach an astonishing level, and it would be extremely difficult to step out. After experiencing the cultivation of water and earth, Jiang Xiu was now addicted to cheating. He was thinking about where to find a strange object that contained heavenly fire. Sect Master. Yang Xingyang appeared behind Jiang Xiu. In front of Jiang Xiu was a waterfall that fell from the sky. The sound of water came from afar, but Jiang Xiu could still hear it clearly. Fourth Mother had started to call him Sect Master at some point, and the word Jiang had already been omitted. Is your body feeling better? Even the body of a celestial king was tormented badly. Fourth Mother grunted, but immediately realized that she had said something wrong. She hurriedly shook her head, but she was standing behind Jiang Xiu, and Jiang Xiu could not see her movements. Jiang Xiu flipped his palm, and a crystal that emitted a yellow light floated above his palm. Unfortunately, the seal inside had not been opened yet. Just the law of earth on the outside was enough for Jiang Xiu to benefit endlessly. What was sealed inside must be an even stronger power. The power that the master of the forbidden area had displayed should be one of them. And it definitely had not been fully unleashed. If it was fully unleashed, Jiang Xiu guessed that it would be at the emperor level. Take it. Seeing the earth crystal floating over, Yang Xingyang was greatly shocked. She said involuntarily, "You really want to return the inheritance to the immortal tribulation sect? Isn't this what you want?" Yang Xingyang said in surprise. I thought, you were lying to me." Jiang Xiu said. "You knew I was lying to you, but you still let me?" Yang Xingyang turned her head and ignored this bad guy. At this moment, her hair was messy, and her starry eyes were misty. She was both happy and shy, and was very charming. Why else would people call you a bastard? Although she was shy, she still reached out and took the earth crystal. Yang Xingyang could of course use the earth crystal to cultivate, but this stone would be in her hands for hundreds of years, or even thousands of years. The immortal tribulation sect would definitely not allow it, unless you were the master of the forbidden area. Only the inheritor could inherit this inheritance. In the end, Yang Xingyang would return the earth crystal to the immortal tribulation sect. So be it. Who told Jiang Xiu to take such a big advantage? He still had to keep his word. He had already changed his title to sect master. Tricking an immortal king back was already a sure thing. Let's go back to the immortal tribulation sect. Okay. Yang Xingyang replied, but then she hesitated. After a while, she said, "We can't let the sect elders know about our relationship for now. Let's go separately." She might not want to appear with Jiang Xiu, but Jiang Xiu also did not want the immortal tribulation sect to know that the beautiful woman they had carefully arranged had been conquered by him. Wait until Elder Shui's illness is cured, then we'll make plans. When the time came, Shui Wuyao would want the sect to give him an explanation. But no matter what the result was, Jiang Xiu would definitely leave. Yang Xingyang said that they would make plans when the time came, which meant that she intended to leave with Jiang Xiu. Jiang Xiu said, "Then how about we alternate days? If they return to the sect on the same day, it would arouse suspicion." "That's not necessary." The two immediately flew out of the mountain. After identifying the direction, they headed towards the immortal tribulation sect. This trip took several days. Jiang Xiu and she could be said to have left the immortal tribulation sect at the same time. They did not know how the immortal tribulation sect was doing. At this time, the entire Immortal Tribulation sect was shrouded in black smoke, emitting a terrifying demonic aura. Outside, there was a huge mirror shining down from above. There was a pattern similar to yin and yang on the mirror. It was very mysterious. When the light fell on the black smoke became thinner. Jiwuhua, I advise you to surrender. You won't be able to hold on for long. Roar. Yen Shilong roared in response. The roar was still terrifying, but the evil aura had weakened. Anyone would feel tired after enduring for several days in the array. If you have the ability, then break in. Jiwuhua said coldly. At this moment, she was sitting on the edge of the bed, helping Shui Wuyao with acupuncture. Without the yellow dragon grass and some medicine, the progress was very slow. She could only rely on the immortal doctor's technique to treat her slowly. The progress was not smooth, and there were strong enemies outside. The Immortal Tribulation sect was worthy of being a sect with an ancient inheritance. Yen Shilong was so powerful, but he was still suppressed. Compared to the Dao Si sect that was massacred by him, the Immortal Tribulation sect was much stronger. One must know that Jiang Xiu almost died in the forbidden area. Around the palace, there were 12 white-haired and white-bearded disciples. They pointed their swords at the mirror in the sky, presiding over the array. Sect Master, a disciple reported. Elder Yang is back. He's finally back. He even brought back the sect's inheritance. What? Hearing this, everyone was overjoyed. Hua Yufeng happily asked, where is Elder Yang now? Chapter 747. Hua Yufeng and the other elders were very excited. Although they felt that it was a little underhanded when they came up with the plan, the effect was still very good. They racked their brains and tried every method to get the inheritance back, but they couldn't. Wasn't it so easy to get it back? It was really like wearing out iron shoes in a fruitless search, only to find it by chance. They rushed to the main hall excitedly, and saw that Yang Xinyang was already at the side. Her delicate face had a redness and charm that was never there before. However, this was nothing. As expected, an old virgin for thousands of years had become a woman. Xinyang, you got it back? When he asked this, Hua Yufeng's heart was still very excited. This thing was too important to the Immortal Tribulation sect. If he really lost it, he would become a great sinner of the Immortal Tribulation sect. The people at the side all stared with their eyes wide open. Fourth Mother let out a long sigh in her heart. For the sake of the sect, she had suffered such a great grievance. She even risked her life to seduce that big devil from Jiangluo, and only came back after so many days. Moreover, none of these people cared about her life or death. All of them only stared at the inheritance of the sect. She was disappointed, but Yang Xinyang still stretched out her hand, and a piece of earth-colored crystal appeared, exuding an ancient and boundless aura. When the item was revealed, the people present all went into an uproar. We got it back. That's great. Hua Yufeng trembled as he stretched out his hand and said, Elder Yang, you have made a great contribution. Can this treasure be taken directly? Yes. Yang Xinyang took the opportunity and stuffed the earth-colored crystal into his hand. Hua Yufeng held it in his hand and felt it for a moment. Then he couldn't hold back his excitement and said, It's real, it's really the inheritance. At that time, they were worried that it was fake. They weren't worried that Yang Xinyang was faking it, but that Yang Xinyang would be deceived by Jiang Xiu. Elder, you said. I thought that Jiang Luoxia was some kind of great person. Looks like he can't walk the path when he sees a woman. Haha. The people at the side all roared with laughter. Yang Xinyang's expression turned ugly. She had made such a huge sacrifice for the sect, but in the end she had become a laughing stock. She really wanted to leave in a huff, but she endured it. By the way, Elder Yang, what about Jiang Luoxia? Did he return the inheritance to you so easily, or was he killed by you and you took it back? Sect Master Hua Yufeng asked. Yang Xinyang said awkwardly. It was Jiang Luoxia who returned it. With his cultivation, I can't kill him. A few people on the side snickered again. Yang Xinyang's words also proved that Jiang Luoxia could not overcome the hurdle of beauty. Perhaps he was mocking Jiang Xiu, but at the same time, It was extremely disrespectful to Yang Xingyang. What about Jiang Luoxia? Hua Yufeng's face changed as he asked. If Jiang Xiu was fine, given his strength he would definitely return. Once he joined forces with that terrifying demon, the demon-suppressing mirror might not be able to suppress him. That would be troublesome. Yang Xingyang said. How would I know? Hua Yufeng's eyes flashed as he called Yang Xingyang to the side. How is Sect Master Zhang's attitude towards you? Yang Xingyang's cheeks were a little hot. Just so. Hua Yufeng frowned and said, Xingyang, this matter is very important. Although the inheritance has been recovered, the scourge under Jiang Lu has not been eliminated. Yang Xingyang knew that he was asking this question because he wanted her to use her beauty again. She was extremely angry and could not help but say, the scourge has not been eliminated. Who is the scourge that Sect Master is talking about? Is it Elder Yu and Elder Song, the two of them who persecuted their fellow sect members and stole the sword spirit of others? Or is it Jiang Luoxia? Hua Yufeng was stunned. Yang Xingyang said, I'm really afraid that one day I will also go crazy. I don't even dare to return to the sect. Hua Yufeng's face became ugly. Xingyang, do you have resentment? Yang Xingyang said. Xingyang does not dare. Sect Master, have you thought about why you and Jiang Luoxia ended up like this? Whose fault is it? If Elder Song and Elder Yu did not plot against Elder Shui, how would things have ended up like this? How would the master of the forbidden area die? How would the inheritance be lost? Also, Sect Master, don't forget that Jiang Luoxia is not only a powerful immortal king, but also the Tianqing school behind him. Tianqing school is known as the 13 Immortal Kings. Do you think they are so easy to deal with? If you kill Jiang Luoxia, the Tianqing school will not avenge him? Have you considered the consequences? Yang Xingyang's every word struck at Hua Yufeng's heart. Hua Yufeng was stunned, but then he smiled and shook his head, saying, Xingyang is overthinking. Elder Yu and Elder Song are indeed in the wrong, and our sect will punish them. However, with an external enemy in front of us, of course, we have to fight the enemy first. Jiang Luoxia is indeed powerful, but the Tianqing school is nothing more than that. As long as Jiang Luoxia bows down, we will not be afraid that the Tianqing school will really go to war with our sect. Do they have the confidence to do so? Whose life is not a life? Yang Xingyang frowned and said, Sect Master, don't forget that he is the sect master of the Tianqing school. If the sect master is killed, it will be a great humiliation to the sect. If we don't know who the murderer is, then it will be fine. But if we do, which disciple won't risk their lives? Hua Yufeng waved his hand and said, Xingyang is overthinking. Yang Xingyang did not want to argue with him. It was not her place to think about this kind of thing, and it was not her place to make the decision. Xingyang. Did Jiang Luoxia? Yang Xingyang interrupted, not much. Then why did he return the inheritance to you? Yang Xingyang said, this thing was originally the inheritance of my immortal tribulation sect. Of course he would return it. It's just that he was not happy with the way the sect master did it. Originally, he wanted to wait for Elder Shui to recover before handing it over to him. Maybe. In the mist hall, Yin Shulong was struggling to hold on. He was already lying on the ground. Although he would not die, he was powerless to struggle. Ji Wuhua and Su Ying's faces became very pale. I can't hold on anymore. Su Ying looked at Ji Wuhua and said, Immortal Dr. Ji, what should we do now? Yin Shulong, how are you? Yin Shulong said. So sleepy, I want to sleep. Once a demon's strength was exhausted, they would enter a long period of deep sleep. Yin Shulong said that he could not hold on anymore. The black smoke was getting thicker and thicker. They're going to break in. Su Ying was shocked. Once they broke in, they would not be able to survive. Sect Master, where did you go? They had always believed that Jiang Xiu would not be so easily assassinated by these people. Sect Master Jiang. At this moment, they could only hope that Jiang Xiu would return. Boom. At this moment, a ray of light rapidly flew over from the horizon. Not good, Jiang Luoxia is here. Almost at the same time, everyone in the main hall felt a strong and suffocating force shooting over, and the direction was the mist hall. Not good. Everyone's expression changed greatly as they rushed over. If Jiang Xiu arrived and saw the Immortal Tribulation sect besieging the Mist Hall, then boom! A loud sound came from afar. There was an obvious tremor in the sky, as though the entire sky had exploded. Jiang Luoxia, don't you dare be presumptuous. Jiang Xiu looked back coldly. With a cold glint, he charged towards the 12 disciples of the Immortal Tribulation sect, each holding a saber. In an instant, saber radiance swept out. These people were only in charge of the magic tool. They weren't even immortal kings. Facing the current Jiang Luoxia, they didn't have the slightest strength to fight back. Moreover, all their strength was in charge of the demon-suppressing mirror. Ah! There was a miserable cry. Before they could react, they were slashed apart by the saber radiance. Blood splattered everywhere. He looked back again and waved the long blade in his hand again. The demon suppression mirror in the distant sky was ruthlessly slashed by a blade of light. Like shattered glass, the surface of the mirror immediately exploded, and glass shards filled the sky. What was reflected on the mirror was Jiang Luo descending from the sky with blades in hand. A crisp sound rang out. Jiang Luoxia. Hua Yufeng and the other elders cursed. This was the sect's treasure to suppress demons and devils. It was an ancient artifact passed down by their ancestors. Since it could suppress Yin Xulong, it was definitely a first-class treasure. However, it was shattered into pieces by Jiang Xiu. It was destroyed in an instant. The sect master and elders of the Immortal Tribulation sect felt their hearts bleeding. There were also the 12 dead disciples who were in charge of the Grand Array. They were all top experts. Roar. Without the suppressive force, Yin Xulong's roar returned to its previous peak state. He's here. He's back. Ji Wuhua and Suing shouted excitedly. He finally arrived at the most critical moment. Chapter 748. He's back. Ji Wuhua and Suing were so excited that they almost jumped up. Now they could rest assured. As long as Jiang Xiu arrived, the people in front of them would be no different from chickens and dogs. Jiang Luoxia, who was in the sky, threw the long saber in his hand and landed on the ground with a loud bang. His eyes were cold and his hair was fluttering in the wind. Hua Yufeng, I've overestimated your Immortal Tribulation sect. He was furious. If it weren't for Yin Xulong, he could imagine what would have happened to Ji Wuhua, Suing, Shui Wuyao and the others. A dignified ancient sect was actually so lowly. It seems that I haven't punished you enough. Hua Yufeng and more than 10 immortal kings came together. They looked at Jiang Xiu with gloomy eyes and gnashed their teeth in hatred. Not to mention that he had killed the Forbidden Lord and seized the inheritance. Now he had destroyed the treasure and killed the owner. Jiang Luoxia, you're too presumptuous. How dare you kill innocent people in my Immortal Tribulation sect? Hua Yufeng was trembling with anger. Haha. Jiang Xiu laughed to the sky. It was bad enough that they schemed against him, but they even attacked the innocent Ji Wuhua and Suing. Now they even blamed him for killing innocent people. Does your Immortal Tribulation sect only allow Zhouguan to set fire, but not allow ordinary people to light lamps? His tone was extremely cold. In the distance, Yang Xinyang had also arrived. She watched quietly without speaking, but her eyes flashed with helplessness. As an immortal sacred sect, it was fine for them to put down their pride for the sake of the sect's inheritance. However, they had to kill innocent people, including the elders and disciples of the sect. When did the Immortal Tribulation sect become so despicable? What was more embarrassing was that they even said such words. It was a typical example of being the sect master of the Immortal Tribulation sect. It seemed that no one could offend them. It was ridiculous. Jiang Luoxia, you can ask them to stop. Jiang Xiu said coldly. According to what you said, if you can win, then kill. If you can't, then stop. You won't lose anything. How can there be such a good thing in the world? The moment you kill someone, you have to be prepared to be killed. Elder Yu snorted and said, so what? Could it be that you want to gather the entire Tianqing school and start a war with the Immortal Tribulation sect? Jiang Xiu snorted coldly. To deal with you, I don't need the help of my sect's disciples. I alone am enough. As soon as he finished speaking, he had already flown out. Dark saber light flashed in the air, breaking through the air. Under the illumination of the broken mirror fragments, it looked like countless saber lights. One of the saber lights revealed Jiang Xiu's appearance on the mirror. It was Jiang Luoxia's original body. Humph, how arrogant! Elder Song snorted coldly. Although he knew that Jiang Xiu was powerful, challenging the entire Immortal Tribulation sect by himself was an international joke. It was really laughable. As he chanted a spell, several layers of shackles appeared in the sky. A white beam of light soared into the sky and directly disappeared into the white clouds high in the sky. The white clouds in the sky rolled violently like boiling water. With each beam of light as the center, a huge white vortex quickly formed. The white beam of light grew bigger and bigger. Within a few breaths, its diameter had increased to hundreds of feet. It was like a pillar that supported the sky and went straight into the sky. It blocked in front of Jiang Xiu. Elder Song sat cross-legged in the void and chanted. White runes flew out of the beam of light and condensed into a strange formation. What is this? Just as Jiang Xiu was puzzled, the entire beam of light exploded. A huge formation enveloped Jiang Xiu, and a strange astronomical phenomenon appeared. Humph! Jiang Xiu coldly snorted as he softly spoke. All the art of constellations was based on the foundation of this world. No matter how strong he was, he would be as strong as the clear wind. The world's laws were unleashed. In his world, all astronomical phenomena were no longer astronomical phenomena. Whoosh! Jiang Xiu's figure turned into a ray of light and instantly crossed the entire sky. He rushed out of the astronomical phenomenon. At the same time, the sky was filled with the light of the broken saber. It was as if countless stars were accompanying him. Slash! With a chant, the light of the saber suddenly condensed into a long saber. The moment the saber light slashed down, the entire world turned into daytime and nothing else could be seen. The body of the saber was silvery white and the surface was engraved with dense ancient runes. If one looked closely, they would be able to see that they were heaven's questioning runes. Ever since Jiang Xiu comprehended the law of earth, he was only half a step away from erecting the God-sealing monument. Some runes that even Jiang Xiu was unaware of appeared on his natal divine weapon. Rip! Above Elder Song's head, the condensed saber light flashed. At the same time, the saber aura spread out. The saber aura actually formed silver silkworms. The sound of the saber whistled. It was earth-shattering. Elder Song! Everyone cried out involuntarily. Elder Song also widened his eyes in shock. It was too fast. His suppressing spell was like a child's trick in front of Jiang Xiu. What was more terrifying was that Jiang Xiu's speed and saber aura were too fast and too strong. Everything was too sudden. It was too late for the people on the side to rescue him. Dodge! Hua Yufeng shouted. Someone on the side used a sword and shield technique to help Elder Song block Jiang Xiu's saber light. However, with such a fast and fierce saber attack, Jiang Luoxia's natal divine weapon strengthened again and again. Although his saber Dao did not improve, its power had already reached a terrifying level due to the addition of the 5 laws. No matter how Elder Song used his shield or how the people on the side tried to rescue him, his head, chest, and the middle position shone with white light. At the same time, Elder Song's eyeballs almost fell out of their sockets. Chi! Chi! A strange white gas emitted from his body. His entire body shriveled up. Only the Taoist robe on his body fell from the sky. He no longer existed. Elder Song. This time, the people of the Immortal Tribulation sect were going crazy. One of their elders was killed. Previously, one of their forbidden lords was killed. Now one of their elders was killed. Hua Yufeng was trembling with anger. Jiang Xiu originally wanted to leave this person to Shui Wuyao. But since he was so eager to seek death, how could he not fulfill his wish? After killing an immortal king, Jiang Xiu did not show any signs of stopping. The long saber in his hand was held horizontally, and a low and hurried incantation came from his mouth. One could see that his entire body was pulled along by the saber and flew away. Wherever the saber light reached, it was also a celestial king. Jiang Xiu's long saber had already struck his body. It was too fast, but the body that was struck by the saber emitted a burst of white smoke, and a withered branch fell. Jiang Xiu was surprised. It was not easy to escape from his saber momentum. He looked again and saw that the person was several miles away. This was a kind of clone. Withered tree. The corner of his mouth curled up into a sneer. He chanted an incantation and flicked his finger. A ray of light flew out and suddenly expanded. After a few breaths, a huge mountain crashed down. It pressed down on the sky, imprisoning the immortal king in place. Then the saber flashed again. After doing this, Jiang Xiu did not even look at the immortal king. Instead, he turned around and charged toward the other immortal king. This time he killed him on the spot. For a moment, he was like a wolf in a flock of sheep. You're just a chicken and a dog. Jiang Xiu was too strong. With such speed and saber force, Hua Yufeng was dumbfounded. In a short instant, Jiang Xiu killed another 2 immortal kings. Existences as strong as immortal kings were really like clay chickens and pottery dogs in front of him, unable to withstand a single blow. Quick, enter the forbidden area. Right now the only way to survive was to enter the forbidden area. That was because the master of the forbidden area was there. Only the master of the forbidden area could suppress Jiang Xiu. And only the master of the forbidden area could suppress him. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. Beams of light shot toward the forbidden area in the distance. You want to escape? Jiang Xiu's speed was extremely fast. However, those people weren't slow at all when it came to escaping for their lives. Each and every one of them used an escape technique that made people gasp in amazement. The Sky Motion Sect's heavenly fire traversing technique had become trash. Ring the ancient bell. While Hua Yufeng was fleeing for his life, he shot out 3 beams of golden light towards a mountain in the distance. The golden light heavily struck the ancient bell that had not sounded for hundreds of thousands of years. Rings of golden light rippled out from the surface of the bell, and within the ripples, there were all kinds of runes. It should have triggered the shackles on the bell. Dong dong dong. The sound of the bell was loud and clear, and it echoed in the 6 forbidden areas of the Immortal Tribulation Sect. Chapter 749. Hearing the ancient bell ring and seeing Jiang Xiu chase after them without any hesitation, Suing shouted nervously, "Sect Master Jiang, don't chase after them. It's dangerous." Yang Xinyang was already dumbfounded. Jiang Xiu had killed 3 celestial kings in a row, scaring the entire Immortal Tribulation Sect into fleeing like crazy. She was speechless for what had happened to the sect, but she was even more shocked by Jiang Xiu's strength. Yes, Jiang Xiu was far stronger than them. When Jiang Xiu killed the Lord of the Forbidden Area, they didn't really understand the reason, but they knew that Jiang Xiu might be stronger than them, but they were all celestial kings, so there was a limit to his strength. However, the scene in front of her told her that Jiang Xiu was so strong that it wouldn't be difficult for him to wipe out the entire Immortal Tribulation Sect. However, if the ancient bell was rung and all the lords of the Forbidden Area were awakened, then Jiang Xiu would be in danger. Don't chase after them. After she came to her senses, she also cried out involuntarily, "Don't enter the forbidden area." However, everything happened too quickly. Jiang Xiu turned into a stream of light and was thrown into the forbidden area. Like a statue, he crashed into the Lord of the Forbidden Area. The fog here was too strange, and the visibility was very low. However, his eyes were closely following the slowest celestial king. Although his vision was limited by the fog, the flash of light inside was still quite obvious to Jiang Xiu. He suddenly disappeared without a trace. When he reappeared, he was holding a bloody head in his hand. It was Qing Songzi of the Immortal Tribulation Sect. The face of the head was twisted in horror, and his face was covered in blood. His eyes were wide open with fear and unwillingness. The moment the light flashed, Jiang Xiu took away his life. He could only blame himself for not diligently learning speed escape techniques. When it came to the end, he fell behind. A group of people ran for their lives, and the unluckiest one was of course the last one. The women in the misty hall who had also rushed over were dumbfounded when they saw this scene. Were these people celestial kings or mud? They were so weak in front of him. For celestial kings. Back then, Hua Yufeng was reluctant to part with the 2 celestial kings. Now there were 4 celestial kings and 1 lord of the Forbidden Land. If he had known this, he would have obediently handed the two celestial kings over to Jiang Xiu to deal with. Now the loss was more than twice the original. At this moment, Hua Yufeng was so angry that his face was livid. The next moment, the originally hazy clouds became even more viscous. The situation was very strange. The visibility dropped greatly once again, and the naked eye could only see about 10 meters ahead. There was a shadow flickering inside. This discovery caused Jiang Xiu to become vigilant. A ferocious look flashed in his eyes. With a flick of his sleeve, his hand shot out like lightning. He opened his 5 fingers and shot out several blade lights, aiming directly at the shadow. The moment the blade lights flashed, the shadow dissipated along with the smoke. It's fake. Jiang Xiu frowned slightly and walked toward the shadow. Because after the smoke dissipated, it gathered again. This feeling was somewhat similar to the cloud elephant of the goddess, which made him very curious. The shadow was really very real. Although it was a virtual image condensed by the smoke, it was vivid and lifelike. The strangest thing was that it condensed and did not dissipate. Even if it was scattered, it would still gather again. Unexpectedly, at this moment, the shadow suddenly turned around like lightning. With a wave of its hands, more than a dozen talismans emitting red light were thrown out. Hit! The other party shouted and made a gesture. Immediately, the dozen talismans displayed their instincts, emitting strange runic light. With a rumble, all kinds of red thunder and fire flashed, surging toward Jiang Xiu. Caught off guard, Jiang Xiu's figure was drowned in it. Of course, the person who attacked didn't think that a dozen talismans would be enough to kill Jiang Xiu. At the same time, the sword in his hand condensed and shot toward Jiang Xiu. With the activation of the sword, the power continued to increase. The sword light left his hand and turned into 20 or 30 flying swords like a storm. At the same time, he opened his mouth and blew out a mouthful of black mist. The sword light and black wind entered the flying swords, and there was a rumbling sound. After doing this, the only thing he could do now was wait for the result. He had already used his most powerful attack. He was hesitating whether or not he could kill Jiang Xiu in one blow. There was a muffled sound, and then he saw the fastest flying sword fly out, as if it had been hit. The spiritual light on the sword dimmed, and his expression darkened. Sure enough, Jiang Luoxia was not so easy to kill. He hurriedly formed a seal so that it would not collide with the rain of swords behind it. It was like a person was fixed in the void. Then he adjusted his position and rushed up again. Humph! There was a cold snort, and a huge shadow slowly appeared. It suddenly grew to a distance of more than 10,000 feet. Then, the cloud of smoke twisted and swelled like a balloon. When a balloon was blown to a certain extent, it would explode. This cloud of smoke would also explode when it expanded to a certain extent. There was a bang. A powerful force burst out, and a powerful force spread out. Jiang Xiu used the doppelganger's peripheral vision to see everything on the other side. The other party had used all his skills. His cultivation was also very strong, and he had rich combat experience. Fortunately, Jiang Xiu had the strength to crush his opponent. If that person had been the Lord of Forbidden Land, Jiang Xiu would have been doomed. When he saw that his attack had missed, he suddenly cursed and turned to disappear into the cloud of smoke. He was like a fish in water. His figure kept changing in the cloud, and there was no way to chase after him. However, Jiang Xiu was easy to catch. He chanted a spell, and a bright light shone. The saber in his hand suddenly became violent, and it instantly turned into a huge saber that was thousands of feet long. He slashed through the air. Boom. He couldn't lock onto the exact position, but it was a big slash. It depended on whether the opponent was tough or not. Jiang Xiu seemed to have heard a miserable shriek. With a thought, he killed the person. With a whoosh, he flashed to the place where the shriek had come from. However, when he arrived, there was a pool of blood on the ground, but the person was nowhere to be seen. He escaped. Jiang Xiu immediately waved his hand, and a strong wind blew, trying to blow away the cloud of smoke in front of him. However, under his power, the cloud of smoke just kept rolling. Not only did it not disperse, but it also solidified. The Forbidden Land of the Immortal Tribulation sect was really extraordinary. However, you seem to have forgotten one thing. You're injured. The corner of Jiang Xiu's mouth raised into a smile. He sniffed his nose. As expected, there was a slight smell of blood in the air. He immediately chased after the smell. At the same time, he was also observing the terrain here. The ancient bell just now had awakened the Forbidden Lords. He was confident that he could deal with one Jiang Xiu, but it was hard to say if he had to deal with 5 of them. His chances of winning were not high. However, Jiang Luoxia had never been afraid. He had defeated the stronger ones many times. Perhaps he had noticed that Jiang Xiu was chasing after him, so he suddenly sped up. Jiang Xiu suddenly saw a bright light in front of him. He rushed out of the cloud of smoke. In front of him was an empty valley with tall mountains on both sides and waterfalls flowing down. The sound of water filled this place. Looking up, he didn't know how tall the mountains were, but the sky above was filled with spiritual qi. The spiritual qi was very dense, like cotton wool covering the sky. He couldn't feel any aura around him. This place was the same as the Forbidden Land last time. There was no sign of life. There wasn't even a fish in the pool under the waterfall. Jiang Xiu muttered to himself for a while. He spread out his left hand and quickly drew a pattern that looked like the 8 trigrams on it. Golden light flashed, and the pattern on top of it started to spin. He looked at it for a long time and said, "As expected, I've entered the array." Was the bell just now the signal to trigger the array? Although Jiang Xiu's cultivation in array formations wasn't considered a top-notch master, it was definitely not low. As the sect master, he had to learn these things. Back then, in order to compete for the position of the sect master of the Sky Motion sect, he had put in a lot of effort in this area. He had relied on his own ability to climb up step by step. As a junior disciple, he had conquered one elder after another. Similarly, he had also made Jiang Luoxia who he was now. The pattern in his hand kept spinning. Where's the gate of life? Jiang Xiu's eyes were fixed on a cliff. He slashed at it with his saber. The mountain rocks kept falling, revealing a tunnel. On the other side of the tunnel, the light shone over. He saw that all the elders of the Immortal Tribulation sect were on the other side, looking at Jiang Xiu with shock and astonishment. You, what kind of monster are you? Hua Yufeng pointed at Jiang Xiu for a long time before he could squeeze out such a sentence. Chapter 750. It was too terrifying. It seemed that all the schemes were useless against this person. After failing to assassinate him with the smoke in the forbidden area, they used a series of schemes to lure him into the formation. In the end, the formation was broken. Jiang Xiu glanced over. There was a middle-aged man beside Hua Yufeng. Although his arm had recovered, his clothes were torn and his entire arm was covered in blood. He should be the one who sneaked an attack on Jiang Xiu and was severely injured by Jiang Xiu. Still want to run? Where else can I run to? His clothes fluttered in the absence of wind as he walked forward unhurriedly. Suddenly, there was a blur in front of his eyes. His body carried a piece of wreckage with a burst of saber light. Jiang Xiu's saber was not very profound, but it was fast and powerful. Die. The expressions of Hua Yufeng and the others changed drastically. They had fled to the forbidden area and had nowhere to run. Could it be that they had to abandon the sect and run for their lives? Right now, they could only fight with Jiang Xiu. Jiang Luoxia, don't go too far. You killed 4 of our immortal kings in a row. Do you want to fight to the death with the Immortal Tribulation sect? Aren't you afraid of our revenge? Jiang Xiu's eyes were slightly cold. Of course I'm afraid. He pointed his long saber at the crowd. It's precisely because I'm afraid that I will kill all of you. No one will be left alive. Everyone in the Immortal Tribulation sect turned pale when they heard that. A fierce and austere aura rushed over. Everyone said that Jiang Luoxia was difficult to provoke, because he was old demon Jiang. However, the Immortal Tribulation sect did not take it seriously at all. For example, when Elder Song saw Jiang Xiu, others were afraid of Jiang Luoxia, but the Immortal Tribulation sect was not. They even deliberately provoked him. Everyone in the Immortal Tribulation sect thought the same. They did not take Jiang Luoxia seriously at all. However, the current situation told him that old demon Jiang was someone that others could not provoke, including the Immortal Tribulation sect. However, it was all too late. There was no medicine for regret in the world. Wait. In the void, a green figure appeared like a ghost and blocked in front of Jiang Xiu. It was a hook-nosed man in a green robe. His eyes were fixed on Jiang Xiu's long saber, and he intercepted it with his bare hands. The skin on his hands was also green and covered with scales. As for his nails, they were slightly curved like chicken claws. Qi. The heavenly question talisman kept appearing on the blade of the saber. It was as if there was a world of space between the heavenly question talisman in his hand. It was strangely distorted and emitted a green light. Seeing who it was, everyone from the Immortal Tribulation sect shouted, "Forbidden Lord!" Although they had never seen him before, the only person who could save them in the Forbidden Land was the Forbidden Lord. Boom. The power between the saber and the palm continued to surge. Finally, when the light reached its highest point, it exploded. With their exchange as the center, it spread out in all directions. Jiang Xiu took a few steps back. A soft sound came from the heavenly question talisman's body, and he also took a few steps back. Meanwhile, the surrounding mountains were bombarded by explosions. For hundreds of thousands of years, no one has ever dared to barge into the Immortal Tribulation sect. You are the first person to force the current sect master to ring the bell of the Forbidden Land. The Green Taoist stared at Jiang Xiu. You do have some strength. Which Protoss are you? Jiang Xiu did not know the answer to this question. His bloodline was not clear. However, the essence blood of the Heavenly Question clan had a great influence on him. Now, talismans would automatically appear on his natal divine weapon. This was a display of one of the characteristics of his clan. For example, one's skin was white, while another's was yellow. Humph, beat me and I'll tell you. Arrogant. Just now, the Forbidden Lord took Jiang Xiu's sword with his bare hands. From the looks of it, he was much more powerful than Jiang Xiu. However, this was only Jiang Xiu's sword in his normal state, not after he used his talent skill. He had not revealed his true strength yet. The Green Taoist's aura suddenly rose. Jiang Xiu looked at the Green Taoist indifferently. Then he retracted his gaze and chanted a spell. A powerful force came out of his body. Suddenly, it rose to a height of thousands of feet. Humph! The Green Taoist sneered. His body emitted a large amount of green light. An incomparably powerful aura spread out. It was much stronger than before. Suddenly, an arm stretched out and grabbed Jiang Xiu's shoulder. The speed was so fast. Then his body landed on the ground. With a loud rumble, the ground shook violently. Gravel splashed under his feet. Fast enough. The arm that landed on Jiang Xiu's shoulder shone with a green light. However, Jiang Xiu's eyes shone brightly. He shouted angrily. His shoulder shook, and the arm of the thousands of feet tall shadow shook as well. The power increased by more than 100 or 1,000 times. Boom. This power was really earth-shattering. The entire void was moved. The one who saw it the most was Green Taoist. He was shocked to the extreme. This was a power that he had never felt before. It made him feel despair from the bottom of his heart. His entire body was sent flying by this terrifying power. How is this possible? He cried out involuntarily. His previously calm and condescending expression had turned into extreme fear. He was someone who had an emperor-level cultivation technique. However, he was crushed by the power of a divine king. No, this was impossible. He screamed in his heart. Weak, said Jiang Xiu. Compared to the other Forbidden Area Lord, he felt that this one was weaker. However, Jiang Xiu had comprehended the law of earth to perfection. This had greatly increased his strength. In fact, this Forbidden Area Lord's strength was not weaker than the other Forbidden Area Lords. When the power was released, it formed a huge spatial pressure. This power could almost shake the void. It was really terrifying. Green Taoist was sure that this was not the power of an emperor-level cultivator. However, in terms of power, it was not weak at all. It could be said that it was much stronger than a half-step emperor-level cultivator like him. This was probably the advantage of a Protoss's talent. If that was really the case, this talent was too terrifying. Die. Jiang Xiu jumped up. His body had already turned into a beam of light. He flashed and chased after Green Taoist, who had been sent flying. There was a cold smile on his face. Just as he was about to catch up to Green Taoist, he snorted coldly. A green halo appeared behind his head. It shone brightly. Everyone only felt that the void before their eyes flashed, and the scenery around them changed drastically. The green mountains and clear waters that appeared before them disappeared in a flash. Jiang Xiu and Lu Xian were thrown toward the sky at the same time, and in the next second, they were several hundred li away in the sky. In the next moment, they had returned to their original places. The sky, the ground, and the mountains could not withstand such power, and they exploded with rumbling sounds. Be careful, Forbidden Area Lord. He has already killed the Forbidden Area Lord of the Desolate Earth Ridge. Although Jiang Xiu couldn't see it clearly, Taoist Green was already at a disadvantage. Even if he could withstand the attack, he had to fight with all his might. The surface of the green light shook violently and turned into several giant blades that slashed toward Jiang Xiu. With a swoosh, a figure rushed out from within. The giant blade stopped in the air and started to vibrate. Slowly, it shattered and finally, it turned into specks of light and disappeared without a trace. Why didn't you say so earlier? The Forbidden Area Lord roared angrily. His hands moved like wheels as he made hand seals. The Forbidden Area Lord must have used the power of the Forbidden Area before he died. If he could not defeat someone with the power of the Forbidden Area, how could he win with his own power? If he had known this would happen, he would not have acted so pretentiously. Now he was going to be struck by lightning. There was a flash of light in the surrounding void. With an ear-piercing sound, his body changed greatly. With a boom, the whole earth shook. He opened his hand and took out a green jade ruler. The magic power in his body poured into it crazily. The surface of the jade ruler became crystal clear and bright. Then this power was emitted from the jade ruler and formed a green flame. It condensed into a green flame ball and protected his body without letting a drop of water escape. Blue fire. Rumble. The blade light bombarded the green fireball. The fireball rolled violently and flickered wildly. However, it managed to block the blade light. Jiang Xiu looked indifferently at the jade ruler in his hand. It turned out to be a treasure with both offensive and defensive capabilities. At this moment, Green Taoist's appearance had changed drastically. A dark green arm emerged from the green light. Blue veins bulged on the arm, and his fingertips were black. He looked like a demon. The power of the Forbidden Area? He stretched out his hand and waved it. Streaks of dark green light appeared on his fingertips. They left traces in the void that did not disappear for a long time. Chapter 751. The green-robed elder's silhouette blurred as he rushed out from the flames. His entire body was covered in green flames as he waved his hand to strike out a series of seals. Meanwhile, Jiang Xiu tapped his foot, and his figure flew backwards in a flash. For words appeared in his mind. Heavenly demon green fire. Using the human body to cultivate a demon. Using the demon body to guide the green flames. This was an extremely powerful and unorthodox ancient technique. This ancient method was once popular for a while. Although it was powerful, it was harmful to the cultivator and the heaven. Gradually, it was despised by people. Then of course it was lost. He didn't expect that the immortal tribulation sect still had this method, and it was at the emperor level. At this moment, Taoist Green's strength was very close to the emperor level. It could be said that he was on par with the heaven illusion Forbidden Lord. You want to escape? It's too late. His voice was like a beast's roar. His face was also burning with green flames. One could faintly see his scales. His appearance was really a little scary. Humph! With a flip of his hand, a talisman appeared in Jiang Xiu's hand. A light blue light flickered. His entire body flashed, and at the same time, the talisman flew out, but it turned into dozens of flying talismans in midair. Seal. Along with this chant, these talismans all stuck to Taoist Green's body. With a bang, a blue light flashed and turned into a torrent of water. In the next moment, a shocking tsunami swept over and swallowed Taoist Green. In just one breath, the tsunami swept out like a 1,000-meter-long tornado. Seeing this, the people of the immortal tribulation sect secretly clicked their tongues. Jiang Luoxia was really worthy of his name. He was powerful and his spells were enough to shock the immortal martial arts realm. He stood in the void and kept chanting. He waved his hand and made several gestures. They flashed a few times in the world precepts. In his world precepts, the power of any of his precepts would be multiplied, while the opponent's precepts would be infinitely reduced. In the middle of the tsunami, the light of the blue fire slowly shone out. It was not that Jiang Xiu's Fa Li was not as good as him, but that the heavenly demon blue fire was a top-level strange fire. Although he could restrain it, the consumption of Fa Li was too great. In just a short moment he had consumed more than half of his Fa Li. At the same time, Jiang Xiu was also observing Taoist green. It shouldn't be easy for him to trigger the power of the forbidden area. Every time he used a power that was beyond his own level, he would be overloaded, which would consume a lot of his spiritual power. Especially when he was suppressed, the mental and spiritual pressure would cause his spiritual power to be consumed several times. However, his emperor-level power was still superior to Jiang Xiu's. Jiang Xiu's body contained the Heavenly Inquisition bloodline, so he could clearly see Sky Evil Green Taoist condition. His situation was actually slightly better than his. However, Green Taoist was in a panic at the moment. He must have been frightened by Jiang Xiu's means. In a situation where both sides were exhausting each other's energy, they both felt that they were exhausting their energy faster than each other. Therefore, they wanted to end the battle as soon as possible. He suddenly raised his hands, looked up to the sky, and uttered a spell. The jade ruler in his hand constantly shone with a strong light. The blue fire on his body soared to the sky, twisting together with the tsunami that was suppressing him even more recklessly. Two rays of light, one green and one blue, twisted and rushed to the sky. Ha 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 ha. Taoist Green raised his head to the sky and laughed. You can't do it. The two twisting forces rushed to the sky. When they reached an unknown altitude, the water couldn't go up anymore, but the fire was still rushing up. The winner had been decided immediately. Jiang Xiu's spiritual power couldn't be maintained. Did we win? Hua Yufeng asked excitedly and confusedly. We won. We won. Elder Yu shouted excitedly from the side. Looking at Hua Yufeng, who was so nervous that he was about to go into a daze, Elder Yu pointed at the twisting water and fire pillars in the sky. Sect Master, look. The fire is the ancestors, and the water is Jiang Xiu's. The ancestors still has energy, but Jiang Xiu's can't go up anymore. He can't do it. That's great. Jiang Luoxia finally got his reward. Everyone in the Immortal Tribulation sect was excited. If one couldn't go up anymore, it meant that one's spiritual power couldn't withstand it. As a result, the water was devoured by the ancestors' fire. This was the heavenly demon green fire. If one didn't come into contact with it, they would be instantly burned to ashes. An existence at the emperor realm could even burn an immortal emperor to death, let alone Jiang Xiu. From the beginning, Jiang Xiu didn't dare to resist it. He even went close to the green fire. Therefore, Jiang Xiu used magic to deal with it. Evil people will be dealt with by evil people. It's too easy for her to burn him to death. Hua Yufeng gritted his teeth. Jiang Xiu had killed a forbidden lord for immortal kings, and dozens of disciples. It could be said that the debt of blood was heavy. That's right. Ji Wuhua, Su Ying and the others were extremely nervous. Yang Xinyang's expression had completely changed. Not good. Taoist Green roared. Those who set foot in the green fire forbidden land will be sentenced to death. Under the fire that filled the sky, Jiang Xiu's long hair fluttered in the wind. His eyes were cold. He raised his head and looked at the sky. His eyes were filled with indescribable arrogance. The chi of a king that looked down on the world became even stronger. Humph! He didn't stop chanting the incantation. However, a vague figure swayed from inside. It was the innate ability of the third Protoss. With a swoosh, a blade light flashed out. No one could have imagined that Jiang Xiu would be able to use a second spell while fighting Taoist Green. Everything happened too suddenly. No one could have imagined that someone would be able to use two completely different spells at the same time. This was too heaven-defying. No one could have imagined that the speed and power of the blade light would be even more unbelievable. The dazzling light glided across the sky in the most gorgeous trajectory. It was so beautiful. However, in Taoist Green's eyes, there was only fear. Of course it was fear. At this moment, his soul was about to fly out. If it were a normal person, they might be scared to death. He was probably the same. All the hair on his body stood up. No. He let out a heart-wrenching scream as his vision turned white. That's right, when the saber light approached, the light was bright enough to blind his eyes. However, it wasn't just blinding his eyes, it also pierced through his head. His world returned to darkness. He couldn't see anything else. Only a light mark was left on his head. However, his life had been taken away. Taoist Green's body fell down and was drowned in the flames that filled the sky. Ancestor. The disciples of the Tribulation Immortal sect below cried out. Just a moment ago they were still proud. However, in the blink of an eye, they died under Jiang Xiu's blade light. The ups and downs of life were too fast. No. Hua Yufeng screamed uncontrollably. 2 ancestors died in a row. This was something that had never happened before. This damn Jiang Luoxia. He was stunned, confused, and dumbfounded. Jiang Luoxia was still in the motion of shooting out the flying blade. However, the blade light had already destroyed his target. How could this be? They couldn't figure it out. They really couldn't figure it out. They were going to win. Taoist Green fell into the fire and was contaminated by the blue fire. In an instant he was burned to ashes. Without the support of his spiritual power, the flames suddenly gathered and disappeared. It was the Jade Ruler. It slowly fell from the sky. It's the inheritance. Although they didn't know, since the Patriarch had obtained the power of the forbidden area from this Jade Ruler, then it should be an inheritance. However, Jiang Xiu waved his hand, and the Jade Ruler obediently fell toward him. In the end he held it in his hand. Seeing this scene, the big shots of the Tribulation Immortal sect were grief-stricken. It was not easy to get the previous inheritance back. Now another one was taken away. They didn't know what to do. They definitely couldn't get it back. Yang Xinyang's expression was also very strange. She thought to herself, how could this be? If you win, you win. Why did you take the inheritance? What are you trying to do? You must have bad intentions. We won. Ji Wuhua and Suing were so happy that they almost jumped up. They were really scared to death just now. The flame was too terrifying. If they were really contaminated by it, they would definitely die. Fortunately, Jiang Xiu was heaven-defying enough to cast 2 kinds of spiritual power at the same time. Just now, Jiang Xiu saw that his spiritual power would be exhausted if he continued to use it like this. Even if he was lucky enough to win in the end, he wouldn't have the energy to deal with the elders of the Tribulation Immortal sect. Therefore, he made a prompt decision to give up resisting, and shot out his life-bound divine weapon midway. Blue fire. Chapter 752. Jiang Xiu wasn't in a hurry to get rid of these people from the Immortal Tribulation sect. Instead, he was more interested in the Green Fire Ruler. The power of the Green Fire was superior to his Heavenly Water Law. It must contain the complete law of Heavenly Fire, including the small part that Jiang Xiu hadn't comprehended. Once he obtained this law, he would be able to gather the 6 great laws and erect the God-sealing monument. This made Jiang Xiu excited. The Green Fire Ruler was the same as the Earth Crystal. There was a layer of imprisonment inside. It was also an Immortal Emperor-level imprisonment. It was a secret technique of the Immortals. On the outside, it was the complete law of Heavenly Fire. And at this moment, there were 4 groups of auras that were so powerful that they made people feel suffocated in the distance. Their auras were faintly pressing towards them. Jiang Xiu frowned slightly. These 4 auras were so powerful that they weren't any weaker than the 2 forbidden lords who had fought before. If he wasn't mistaken, they should be the forbidden lords of the other 4 forbidden lands of the Immortal Tribulation sect. Moreover, these 4 forces were approaching. Although they were not fast, they were indeed approaching slowly and casually. It was as if a 1,000,000-strong army was descending upon a city. They were only facing a broken city and had no desire to conquer it. However, The intimidating power of 1,000,000 lions could be felt from hundreds of miles away. Facing Jiang Xiu, he was still confident. But facing 4 forbidden lords, Jiang Xiu's chances of winning were less than 10%. In addition, he had consumed too much of his magical energy in the previous battle. Therefore, his chances of winning were less than 5%. The old ancestors are here. While Hua Yufeng was grieving, a look of joy appeared on his face. This time, it was not just one old ancestor, but 4 old ancestors. They must have sensed the extraordinary strength of the intruder. And they had already killed 2 forbidden lords. Jiang Xiu's expression was solemn. His eyes were flickering. Jiang Luoxia, today, you will pay for all the crimes you have committed against the immortal tribulation sect. Hua Yufeng roared, his voice trembling. He pointed at Jiang Xiu, wishing he could bite him to death. That's right, Jiang Luoxia. Let's see what kind of tricks you can pull now that the 4 ancestors are here. In the distance, Ji Wuhua also felt these 4 inhuman powerful auras. His face gradually turned ugly. It was already so difficult to defeat one of them. How could he defeat 4 of them together? Su Ying's face was even paler. As a disciple of the Immortal Tribulation sect, she had naturally heard a lot about the legends of the Forbidden Grounds. Among them, there was a rumor that 2 forbidden lords were able to fight against an immortal emperor, and 4 of them were enough to kill an immortal emperor. Now 4 of them had come at once. Sect leader Jiang Run. Su Ying anxiously came to the side of Jiang Xiu and said. Her eyes were fixed on him. Towards Jiang Xiu, she relied on him and even worshipped him. This was especially so when Jiang Xiu offended the Immortal Tribulation sect for Shui Wuyao. He suppressed so many immortal kings of the Immortal Tribulation sect to the point where they couldn't even raise their heads. According to the ancient records of the Immortal Tribulation sect, if the 4 forbidden lords work together, they can even kill immortal emperors. Jiang Xiu's eyes suddenly swept over, full of doubt. It's true. This is what my father told me. It was specially set up to prevent the Immortal Tribulation sect from being attacked by immortal emperors one day. Sect leader Jiang, although you're very powerful, you're still not a divine emperor. However, even if you're a divine emperor, it's hard to say whether you'll win or lose. Hurry up and run. Don't worry about us. What you've done for my father is enough. Run. Jiang Xiu muttered to himself. The word run didn't exist in Jiang Luoxia's dictionary, and he had never been defeated. However, he would never do something that was equivalent to suicide. Jiang Xiu sneered. Su Ying was extremely anxious, but Jiang Xiu changed the topic and asked, Where did your father hear all this from? Su Ying nodded and said, What did your father hear? Su Ying thought to herself. What kind of situation is this now? She said, maybe my father's master told him, or maybe he saw it in the ancient records of the Ancient Scripture Pavilion. Ancient Scripture Pavilion? Jiang Xiu had heard Shui Wuyao boasting that the information in the Ancient Scripture Pavilion was not inferior to the Consonance Pavilion. Of course, Jiang Xiu scoffed at it. Although the Immortal Tribulation sect was also a very ancient sect, and in Jiang Xiu's opinion, there was no way it could be compared to the Consonance Pavilion. However, this was just Jiang Xiu's own assumption. In fact, whether it was the Immortal Tribulation sect or the Consonance Pavilion that existed first was still untested. However, Shui Wuyao was a person who would never brag. Some people would talk big when they opened their mouths. Although Shui Wuyao was full of pride for his sect, he had never been a person who would brag. Perhaps there might be something special going on. Sect leader Jiang, you better run. Of course, the Forbidden Area was the most important place in the Immortal Tribulation sect. However, if the Ancient Scripture Pavilion really had such a long history as Shui Wuyao said, then the value of the books in it would not be lower than the so-called inheritance. Thinking of this, Jiang Xiu's lips curled up into a smile. Suddenly, he leaped into the air and turned into a ball of flame, disappearing in the next moment. Jiang Luoxia is escaping. Su Ying heaved a sigh of relief. He finally escaped, but her heart was still a little worried. Even someone as powerful as Jiang Luoxia had to escape in the end. Lord Sect Leader. Ji Wuhua was stunned. Jiang Xiu used the heavenly fire traversing heaven technique and flashed past her. Although she could not see it, she could still feel the fluctuation of magic power. She must be an immortal king. The reason why she was stunned was because Yang Xingyang, who was behind her, had also disappeared. She was swept away by the flames. Jiang Xiu had taken her away. Quick, chase after him. Hua Yufeng immediately turned into a streak of light and chased after him. The 4 forbidden lords were even faster, covering the sky and covering the earth. All kinds of powerful auras chased after Jiang Xiu. However, they discovered that Jiang Xiu was not escaping towards the outside of the sect, but towards the depths of the sect. Yang Xingyang was grabbed by him and struggled symbolically a few times. What are you doing? Do you want me to escape with you? Or do you want to take me as a hostage? Jiang Xiu did not answer her. Instead, he asked, which direction is the ancient scripture pavilion? Yang Xingyang asked in surprise. Why are you looking for the ancient scripture pavilion? I advise you to run for your life. The forbidden lords of the immortal tribulation sect cannot leave their forbidden area unless they ring the forbidden ancient bell. However, even if they ring the bell, they cannot leave the sect. They must guard the forbidden area. As long as you can escape from the immortal tribulation sect, with your cultivation, the immortal tribulation sect will not be able to do anything to you. You should run, Jiang Xiu said. Where is the ancient scripture pavilion? Why don't you listen to me? Yang Xingyang was very puzzled. Since you don't care, then I'll leave it to you. It's at the southwest tower of the sect. She still pointed the way for Jiang Xiu. The firelight rushed over in an instant, and in a flash, it traversed dozens of miles across the horizon. A lighthouse-like tower appeared in the distance, and in the next second, Jiang Xiu and Yang Xingyang appeared in the tower. Jiang Xiu's gaze turned and said, an ancient tower like this must have a defensive formation. A large part of a sect's heritage was knowledge. This information was, of course, very precious. Any sect, including Jiang Xiu's own Tianqing school, would protect this area very well. Of course, Yang Xingyang said. That's where the formation is activated. In reality, it's because the forbidden ancient bell opened this place. Under normal circumstances, no one can enter without special permission. Don't tell me you want to use this as a protective tower? Jiang Xiu raised his hand and shot a wave of energy to activate the formation, but it didn't work. The formation didn't move at all. Yang Xingyang said, we have to use the power of an immortal. Your Protoss power won't work. Jiang Xiu said, then I'll have to trouble you. Yang Xingyang glared at him and said, Jiang Luoxia, that's enough. Who do you think I am? If I do this, wouldn't I be betraying my sect? Do you really want me to sever all ties with the immortal tribulation sect? Jiang Xiu said, then it seems like it's better to burn this place down. It'll be more practical. You, shameless. Yang Xingyang was so angry that her chest heaved up and down violently. Wouldn't it be fine if I told you to run away? Why do you have to cause so much trouble? Jiang Xiu said, Jiang Luoxia will never run away. He will never lose. Yang Xingyang was helpless. She could only point her finger at the array. Immediately, a beam of light shot out from the top of the ancient scripture pavilion. Then it spread out and enveloped the entire area. Okay, the people outside are coming in. So what? Xingyang rolled her eyes. Then let's start practicing. Chapter 753. Such shameless words came out of his mouth. Yet he did not feel ashamed at all. Yang Xingyang's heart was filled with shame and anger. She fiercely rolled her eyes at him, but he did not know how alluring her shy and resentful face was. Jiang Luoxia, can you be more shameless? You're already dead, yet you're still thinking about that. She would feel embarrassed if she said anything related to him. She could only feel her cheeks burning. She could only use her hands to rub her face continuously, letting the cool air blow out to help her cool down. Jiang Xiu, on the other hand, was very impatient. Seeing that Yang Xingyang was not cooperating, he began to take action. Yang Xingyang bit her red lips. Are you crazy? Are you crazy? Are you trying to kill me? Although he had activated the tower's array, the forbidden sect master, elders, and disciples were all rushing over. They would arrive in the blink of an eye. If he were to lose his life inside, they might be able to break the array and enter. At that time, he wouldn't be able to survive. They're coming. Yang Xingyang frowned. Sometimes people are licentious in their bones. That's why there are exhibitionists in this world. Initially, Yang Xingyang was very resistant. However, after being teased and kissed by Jiang Xiu a few times, she felt very excited and unknowingly became aroused. Don't be like this. Her body made of water was inexplicably trembling. Jiang Luoxia, come out and die. Hua Yufeng's voice came from the sky outside. Jiang Xiu laughed loudly. Come in yourself if you have the ability. I want to see how powerful the Immortal Tribulation sect's protective array is. This array was definitely the strongest. Everything here was the most important thing in the sect. Bastard, do you think I don't have a way? Back then, the founder of the sect had considered protecting the tower. As for the array's core, of course it was left behind. However, it wasn't left outside but inside. If they wanted to enter from the outside, they would have to research a way to break the array or forcefully break it with their spiritual energy. Compared to finding a way to break the array, they might not succeed even if they were given decades of research. Therefore, they could only use brute force to break the array. For ancestors, what do you think we should do now? One of them said. Let's break the formation by force. Immortal kings like Hua Yufeng were no longer of much use to this kind of formation passed down by an immortal emperor. They could only rely on the 4 Gene Kings from the Forbidden Grounds. In his arms, Yang Xingyang's face was flushed red. What do we do now? She asked. She had an inexplicable sense of trust towards Jiang Xiu. Perhaps it was because they had slept together, but more importantly, Jiang Xiu's strength made her very confident. In other words, women were actually blind. They would blindly trust their men. After being teased by Jiang Xiu, she felt dizzy and didn't want to think about anything. She just wanted to hide in Jiang Xiu's shelter and let him block everything. Don't bother about them. Just as he finished speaking, he felt the entire mountain tower shake. The 4 Gene Kings outside forcefully attacked the array, causing the array to surge and shake internally. Jiang Xiu carried her to the back door of a bookshelf. Yang Xingyang said pitifully, "What do we do when they break in?" Then Xingyang won't be able to live. Jiang Xiu said, "I'll dig out their eyes." Uft. Yang Xingyang said, "You have to run for your life. How can you dig out their eyes? So hurry up." Yang Xingyang bit her red lips. Her eyes were watery and her cheeks were burning hot. She said shyly, "I don't." But she was so agitated that she couldn't control herself. Her heart was in a mess and her hands were trembling. "You don't want to?" "No." Yang Xingyang's voice was extremely soft. He didn't know if she was unwilling or not. "It's too bright outside. What if they see us from outside? Why don't we wait until it's dark?" "At night? What do we do at night?" "You." Yang Xingyang was extremely embarrassed. How did it turn into her begging him? Her face and ears were red, but her heart was beating fast. "At night, I'm training at night. I'm begging you, people will see us. Of course you have to be diligent in training. Of course you have to train at night, but you can't be lazy during the day." Yang Xingyang's forehead was covered in beads of perspiration. Her face was as red as a peach blossom and her eyes were misty. Her fingernails dug deeply into Jiang Xiu's firm back muscles, because that guy had already started to train. Jiang Xiu was only one small step away from the path of heavenly fire, and the complete law of heavenly fire could be found. Therefore, he quickly began to comprehend the last step. Originally, such a heaven-defying step would be met with unimaginable concealment from the heavens. It would be impossible to succeed, but with the 7 immortals' physique, it was easy to hide. There was no need to hide from the heavens. Every time he comprehended a law, his divine spark would grow stronger. The strength of a Protoss was not only dependent on his own body, but also on his divine spark. The differences between races were not that great. After reaching adulthood, everyone's strength would be limited, and the main thing was still the divine spark. Every law of perfection would cause the divine spark to grow noticeably stronger. After comprehending 5 laws, his divine spark had grown to a level that far exceeded that of a divine king. It was hundreds, if not thousands, of times stronger than before. Moreover, because the cultivation method he practiced was the great God-sealing technique, there was a connection between the Godhead and the life-bound artifact, and it was constantly getting closer. The 4 Forbidden Lands outside took the initiative to use the power of the Forbidden Lands. 4 rays of light of different colors slammed into the formation, causing a sizzling sound. There was not much of a disturbance, but the strength of the legs inside was astonishing. Various runes sputtered out like dust. 4 ancestors, how is it? One of the white-haired and white-browed elders said. This formation is used by the sect to protect the scripture tower. It is a top-grade formation. Although there is no one controlling it, its power is greatly reduced, but it will still take some time to break through. Hua Yufeng nodded when he heard this. To him, it was not important how long it would take. As long as it could be broken through, it was enough. Despicable scoundrel. He cursed fiercely. He had never expected that Yi Futian would escape into the scripture tower. Even if the scripture tower is destroyed, we can't let Jiang Luoxia go. Elder Yu said angrily. His hatred for Jiang Xiu was even stronger than Hua Yufeng's. His good deed had almost been ruined. Even if things calmed down, it would be impossible for him to obtain Misty Sword Spirit again. It would not be his turn. Hua Yufeng said. What about the people who came with Jiang Luoxia? Although he knew that the Forbidden Lord would not let them capture those people to threaten Jiang Xiu, he still did not want to let those people go. Just now we all chased after Jiang Luoxia. Those people's whereabouts are unknown. They should not have left. If Jiang Luoxia died, they would not be able to escape the pursuit of the Immortal Tribulation sect. However, there is a terrifying demon beside them. I'm afraid. They could not take it down last time. The demon suppression mirror was already destroyed. This time, it would be even more impossible. The 4 ancestors' spiritual power attacked the formation again and again. They still had a little understanding of this formation, so they knew where the thinnest part was. Moreover, the 4 spells attacked the same spot. As the spells hit it, the runes on the formation lit up. Under the continuous attack of the light pillars, the light film became thinner bit by bit. According to the current situation, it was only a matter of time before the formation was broken. It might not even take too long. At this moment, Jiang Xiu's godhead and his natal artifact were getting closer and closer. As the last heavenly fire law was perfected, it was approaching perfection. Once it was completed, Jiang Xiu had a premonition that the godhead and his natal artifact might merge into one. This might be the most unique and most important step of the great God-sealing technique. Although Jiang Xiu didn't know what the God-sealing steel was, he knew that when the God-sealing steel was formed, even if the great God-sealing art didn't reach major completion, he would still be able to step into the God-Emperor realm. With a boom, his mind exploded. The power of heaven and earth surged violently. An invisible and powerful force fell on Jiang Xiu's body, nourishing and strengthening his godhead. The last step was finally taken. It's done. Yang Xingyang was exhausted. She lay on the ground, dripping with sweat. Her charming eyes were fierce. She seemed to feel that the Jiang Xiu behind her was different, but she could not pinpoint it. Jiang Xiu's godhead emitted 6 rays of light of different colors. The natal artifact seemed to produce a strong attractive force, pulling at the godhead. The 2 forces actually began to merge. Chapter 754. The godhead contained time, space, heavenly fire, heavenly earth, heavenly water, and heavenly wind, a total of 6 great perfection laws. Obtaining one great perfection could allow one to become a great celestial immortal, and combining 3 great perfection laws could allow one to become a king. Although Jiang Xiu had not tried to fuse them, according to the great God-sealing technique, once one comprehended the 6 great perfection laws, they would fuse together. Therefore, Jiang Xiu did not spend any effort to fuse them. The great God-sealing technique, which was ranked 9th out of the 3,000 great Tao, was definitely not fake. At this moment, the heavenly fire law had already reached great perfection. This powerful force was the force of heaven and earth after reaching great perfection. It would greatly strengthen Jiang Xiu's godhead. At this point, The 6 weapons of the great God-sealing technique had gathered and started to merge. The Godhead's various laws condensed into light threads that stretched towards the natal artifact like tentacles, but they also seemed to be attracted by the natal artifact. There was a feeling of magnetism between them. As the Godhead and the natal artifact approached, Jiang Xiu felt a violent reaction in his divine body. It was the same physically. The feeling of becoming a divine emperor became even stronger. Yang Xingyang discovered that Jiang Xiu's entire body was bursting with intense light. She opened her eyes wide in surprise. As the light exploded, Jiang Xiu's aura changed greatly. It became much stronger. If it was not for the fact that she could still feel Jiang Xiu, she would have suspected that the person in front of her was not Jiang Xiu. Jiang Xiu's ears, eyes, and even the back of his buttocks were all emitting rays of light that danced like tentacles. His entire being seemed to have transformed into a demon. However, Jiang Xiu was still on top of her. Yang Xinyang's delicate body whispered, "What's wrong with you?" At this moment, Jiang Xiu could not hear anything outside. It was as if he had entered a state of evolution and cut off all contact with the outside world. His body was undergoing earth-shattering changes. As soon as the godhoods came into contact with the life-bound artifact, a chemical reaction seemed to take place. They affected each other and slowly dissipated, turning into a dazzling light that began to fuse together. Heavenly fire fused with Hutu, Hutu fused with heavenly wind. Starting from the tiniest of laws, all the laws of perfection began to fuse with each other. The reason why it was so difficult for a heaven immortal to advance to the immortal king realm was because it was too difficult to fuse different laws. The fusion of fire and earth was already extremely difficult. However, there were dozens of small laws in the heavenly fire. If it fused with dozens of laws in the earth and heavenly water, the number of superimposed laws was truly terrifying. That was why immortal kings were so rare. But now, under the great God-sealing technique, the 6 soldiers attracted each other and began to fuse together. This was also where the power of the great God-sealing technique lay. It faintly revealed to Jiang Xiu an unfathomable horizon. One more would be too much, and one less would be too little. This was just right. As the various laws fused together, the Godhead, with the life-bound divine artifact as the foundation, began to undergo a qualitative transformation, causing Jiang Xiu to undergo a complete transformation. Could it be? Yang Xinyang suddenly thought of a possibility. She turned to look at Jiang Xiu behind her, and her gaze gradually changed. Her eyes were filled with disbelief. There was only one reason for such an obvious explosive increase in one's strength, and that was to advance. However, Jiang Luoxia was already a divine king. If he advanced, wouldn't it be? Yang Xinyang didn't dare to think about it. As Jiang Xiu's body transformed like a demon, she was like a lone boat in the sea, battered by the wind and rain. When a huge wave came crashing over, she would be completely submerged. Sect Master. Her voice was extremely charming. If Jiang Xiu really broke through at this moment, then she would have contributed greatly. Thinking about how she had helped the divine emperor, her body became even more excited. Sect Master. The fusion of the laws of nature was far from something man-made. This was a kind of heavenly awakening that was triggered by the heavens. On the other hand, man-made fusion was heaven-defying. Although different paths led to the same goal, the difference in speed was imaginable. Yang Xinyang cried out involuntarily. At this moment, Jiang Xiu's strength skyrocketed. It could be described as breaking through the horizon. This was a powerful strength that they had never felt before. The so-called divine emperors were already legendary figures. They had never seen one before. And now, Jiang Xiu was about to become a divine emperor. How could Yang Xinyang not be excited? She cried out involuntarily, her long hair fluttering wildly. The intense stimulation made her feel as if her entire body was about to explode. Sect Master. Master. At the same time, above the sky, beyond the 9th heaven, a tablet fell down and stood in the void. Jiang Xiu's godhead had completely fused with his natal divine weapon. The light also gradually faded away. On Jiang Xiu's shirtless body, the heavenly question talisman appeared out of thin air. His chest, torso, arms, back, and thighs were almost all over his body. Who? Jiang Xiu's consciousness gradually returned. He felt that after his strength skyrocketed, there was a mysterious power that was far away in the horizon but close to his body. This was a kind of power that was similar to the void. Is this a divine emperor? In the void, a mysterious ancient tablet appeared and then disappeared. The next moment it appeared again. Was this the God-sealing tablet? He had never heard of a substance that could hide in the void. It was really a heaven-defying creation. Indeed, the so-called divine emperor had indeed jumped out of the previous limit of strength and reached a new level. However, there was not a single name on the tablet. Since it was the God-sealing tablet, there should be a name on it. Was it the God-sealing tablet? Although Jiang Xiu had now become a divine emperor, his great God-sealing technique had not really been completed yet. He still lacked the so-called merit. The great God-sealing tablet, the great God-sealing tablet. When the time came, this power would have an extremely strong merit power. The power was entrusted to the void. The space that it could develop was certainly far greater than the space that was limited to a physical body, no matter how strong the physical body was. When he raised his hand or lifted his foot, the void seemed to move. This part of the world seemed to be controlled by him. Previously, Jiang Xiu thought that the sky was oppressive and the sky should be erected. However, at this moment he finally understood what Ling Tian meant. Everything in the world belonged to him, just like his arms. So powerful. The power of an immortal king could be said to be the smallest A-class power outside the void. The power of a divine emperor could be said to be all the power in the void beyond the A-class. It was on a completely different level. Fourth Mother was panting and sweating like a lamb that had been completely conquered. She looked at Jiang Xiu with eyes full of admiration and said softly, "Lord Suzerain." Her body and mind were completely conquered. "You've become a divine emperor?" Jiang Xiu did not answer. At this moment, his eyes were still emitting a strong light. Fourth Mother looked at the runes that appeared on his chest. She knew that this was an extremely mysterious rune. Learning it would bring endless benefits, but she could not understand it at all. It was too profound. In the light, the reason why the light was so strong was that Jiang Xiu had not completely come out of the state of evolution. There were many things in his mind out of nowhere. This was part of the inheritance of the awakening. He saw the collapse of Buzhou Divine City. He saw the sea. The storm on the sea turned into a vast ocean. He saw a goddess statue at the end of the sea. It was the goddess. It was her. The light was drowned out little by little. Jiang Xiu's consciousness gradually returned to normal. At this point, his appearance also became clear. He did not change much from the previous Jiang Xiu, but he gave people the feeling that he was a completely different person. "Jiang Luoxia, you've become a divine emperor?" Jiang Xiu nodded at her and asked, "There are so many books in the scripture pavilion. Are there any records about the position of the pavilion of consonants?" Although he had awakened part of the inheritance, what he saw was also circulated in the immortal martial continent. If he wanted to know more, he was afraid that he would have to wait until his divine body fully matured. He did not know how long this period of time would take, but it would definitely not stop. Jiang Xiu was not in a hurry. He wanted to find the position of the pavilion of consonants and investigate the relationship between him and the goddess. Boom! Suddenly, an explosion came from outside. The entire tower shook and the great formation at the top of the tower exploded. Yang Xinyang was shocked. "Not good, the formation is broken. Where are my clothes?" Chapter 755. If the people from the Immortal Tribulation sect barged in and saw them in this state, Yang Xinyang would definitely die. Looking at her flustered appearance, Jiang Xiu couldn't help but want to laugh. "You can still laugh. You're the one who got us into trouble." She had never experienced such a strong feeling before. She frantically picked up her clothes and quickly put them on. She tidied up her makeup. Jiang Xiu's eyes looked towards the hole in the array and said, "They're here." "Jiang Luoxia, let's see where else you can hide." Hua Yufeng rushed in with a group of forbidden lords and elders. "Do you think you can hide in your turtle shell forever just because you're a coward?" The 4 forbidden lords behind him had different appearances, but their auras were stronger than the previous two, especially the white-haired, white-bearded and white-browed elder. His aura was faintly close to the immortal emperor realm. You even captured our elders? Hua Yufeng's gaze swept across Yang Xinyang's face, and his expression became even more furious. Humph. Jiang Xiu looked at Yang Xinyang. Didn't you say that the 4 forbidden lords of the immortal tribulation sect could kill an immortal emperor? Let's see if it's true today. Yang Xinyang's red lips moved, and her mood was very complicated. The feud between Jiang Xiu and the immortal tribulation sect could be said to be irreconcilable. She was caught in the middle, and it was very difficult for her to mediate. Of course, in her opinion, the main problem was the immortal tribulation sect. 2 forbidden lords and 4 elders had died, and the immortal tribulation sect would never let this matter rest. The white-haired, white-bearded elder sized up Jiang Xiu. Who are you? Which sect are you from? Jiang Luoxia of the Tianqing school. Jiang Xiu suddenly took a step forward. With this step, the entire void seemed to be under his feet. Heaven and earth suddenly darkened as if night had fallen. He walked in the starry sky, and the surging immortal emperor power was faintly discernible. You. Everyone present was suddenly shocked. This power was too strong and too terrifying. Their expressions all changed. Hua Yufeng looked at Jiang Xiu in horror. Jiang Xiu was not so powerful before. At this moment, Jiang Luoxia seemed to be in existence above this world. Every move he made had earth-shattering power. How? Elder Yu and the 4 forbidden overlords were horrified by the scene before them. Jiang Xiu said, "Are you surprised? I accidentally advanced." Accidentally? Everybody couldn't help looking at each other. What a joke. Above godly kings were godly emperors. You're too careless. Can't you do something like that? Who are you trying to scare? Elder Yu sneered. Do you think it's so easy to reach the emperor level? Even the forbidden overlords of the White Lands couldn't reach the emperor level in 30,000 years. You think you can do it in such a short time? Jiang Xiu glanced at Yang Xinyang. The latter's face was still flushed red. Yang Xinyang had contributed greatly. If it weren't for her 7 immortal physique, Jiang Xiu wouldn't have advanced so quickly. That's right, the group echoed. People were always like this, believing in what they hoped for. They definitely didn't believe that Jiang Xiu could reach the immortal emperor level in such a short time. One had to know that from great celestial immortal to immortal king, even if the conditions were right, it would take several years or even dozens of years of seclusion to break through. The godly emperor level would take even longer. Ignorant. You think you can scare us off by pretending to be a godly emperor? Hua Yufeng said. Do you think our immortal tribulation sect is 3 years old? You actually made up such a lie. If you knew this would happen, you would have done the same. Unfortunately, it's too late. The immortal tribulation sect won't let you leave alive. For forbidden lords, thank you for your trouble. The 4 nodded slightly. However, Jiang Xiu's mind moved. There was no one on the god-sealing steel, not even a trace of merit. Even so what? With a thought, a faint purple light appeared between his eyebrows. The purple gold light was the strongest. After all the origins were combined, the light that appeared was purple. This was a celestial phenomenon. However, the group of people in front of him didn't know that this was the symbol of a godly emperor. The godly emperor imprint appeared. His hands formed a seal and his 10 fingers flicked continuously. All the seals disappeared into nothingness. As a result, after a moment, countless purple light spots appeared in the void. They rotated and the purple halo exploded out of thin air. The sound of the air being torn apart was loud. Then he saw the dense purple gold light shining. With Jiang Xiu as the center, the purple light enveloped the area within a radius of 10 miles. The scripture tower was unaffected, but the mountains within a radius of several hundred miles had collapsed. Countless amounts of soil rolled down like huge waves, forming a stretch of rubble and ruins. It was as if doomsday had arrived. What's going on? The mountains where the immortal tribulation sect was located had been set up with restrictions, so they couldn't be destroyed so easily. However, now the mountains were on the verge of collapse. How dare you? The white-haired and white-bearded forbidden lord's eyes shone brightly. Two beams of silver light suddenly shot out and swept past Jiang Xiu. The small runes in the silver light kept flowing, spying on Jiang Xiu's methods clearly. The next moment, his figure blurred and disappeared. Jiang Xiu's eyes were cold. He quickly saw through everything that the white-haired and white-bearded Forbidden Lord was doing. If he had seen the void escape technique before, Jiang Xiu would have been surprised. The Tianqing school's heavenly fire traversing heaven technique only took up a small part of the void, but it was already so fierce. However, this Forbidden Lord was using the complete void escape technique. Yang Xingyang already had a vague idea of Jiang Xiu's nature and habits. She could tell from his eyes that he was going to cause trouble. Jiang Xiu pointed his finger, and suddenly, ripples spread out in the void. The Forbidden Lord, who was using the void escape technique, let out a scream. His figure was like a ripple that rippled out. There was a patter. The white-haired and white-bearded elder fell out of the void and fell heavily to the ground. He let out a painful howl, and the runes on his body scattered. Forbidden Lord. Everyone turned pale with fright. This forbidden master fell to the ground. They discovered that there was not a single part of his body that was intact. The figure that was spreading out like ripples was not an image, but rather him. God. He couldn't say the last word. Forbidden Lord. Dead? They were stunned. The Forbidden Lord had been killed so easily before he could use any shocking magic. What kind of technique was that? How could he be killed just like that? Hua Yufeng and Elder Yu's eyeballs almost popped out of their sockets. Previously, when Jiang Xiu fought with the Lord of the Forbidden Grounds, it was a tie. Although Jiang Xiu won, it was a narrow victory, and he himself almost lost his life. But now he killed a Forbidden Lord so easily. The Forbidden Lord of the Immortal Tribulation sect was like a piece of paper in front of him. No, it's impossible. The three Forbidden Overlords behind him cried out in alarm. They immediately attacked Jiang Xiu. If they didn't do something now, they wouldn't have a chance. The surrounding weather suddenly changed, turning into a scene of the river Styx flowing in reverse. Powerful, pure demonic chi appeared above it. Jiang Xiu's figure disappeared. Now he could see everything with his naked eyes. He walked on the water. He seemed to be in a hurry, but he was actually very fast. He chanted and pointed his finger. At the same time, the Divine Emperor's mark between his eyebrows flickered. A purple rune flew out from between his eyebrows and stopped in front of him. With a whoosh, the male flames on the rune tumbled out and fell into the river Styx. In the next moment, the river Styx was burning. It was covered with a layer of flames. The flames burned for thousands of miles. The river Styx suddenly disappeared. There was an extremely shrill scream. A burning man fell from the sky and rolled on the ground in pain. Save. He couldn't say the last word. There was only a human-shaped burn mark on the ground. Hiss. Everyone present sucked in a breath of cold air. Everyone could tell that the last word should be life. He was shouting for help. Hua Yufeng was completely stunned. No one said a word. He just stared at the burned human-shaped pattern on the ground with wide eyes. Another Forbidden Lord had been killed. Although he was looking at the ground, his eyes were unfocused. Another Lord of a forbidden area was killed by Jiang Luoxia. Chapter 756. With a raise of his hand, he killed two Forbidden Lords in an instant. At this moment, Jiang Xiu was like the ruler of heaven and earth. Life and death were all in his hands. How laughable. They were just mocking Jiang Xiu a moment ago. Now their faces were slapped painfully. When he took another step, the surrounding mountains shook even more violently. Everywhere was collapsing, and balls of light of different sizes were peeling off in the air. The various arrays of the Immortal Tribulation sect began to collapse. What should we do now? A scroll flew over, and a magnificent painting of mountains and rivers appeared before his eyes. Inside the painting, there were vast clouds and clouds, vivid and lifelike. When Jiang Xiu took a step forward, he stepped into the painting. You want to play with this, sovereign? Jiang Xiu, who had fallen into the painting, suddenly disappeared. It was unknown whether it was because he had mastered the scroll or something else, But he was replaced by a man in a long robe who was pointing at a pine tree in the distance. Forbidden Lord. Jiang Xiu suddenly appeared on the scene in a flash. He let out a breath, grabbed the scroll, and tore it into pieces. The man in the long robe was also torn into pieces. He threw the broken pieces in his hand into the sky, and shreds of paper flew everywhere. Another one died. Seeing this, the Forbidden Lord who was about to attack was stunned for a moment. He immediately turned around and fled. However, he suddenly felt that something was wrong. He looked down and found a strange sound coming from his chest. It was as if something was twisting inside. The next moment he screamed in horror. Jiang Xiu came out from inside, and with a sharp purple-gold light, he rushed into the distance. His long hair and clothes fluttered in the wind. He stretched out one hand and formed a sword finger. Boom! There was an explosion behind him, and his body exploded into a bloody mist. Another one died. The 4 lords of the Forbidden Lands were all killed. None of them had the strength to fight back. It was like an adult beating up a child. The child could still kick the adult once or twice. However, the lords of the Forbidden Lands were not even comparable to a child. They were completely crushed. No, they were not even crushed. They were tortured to death. Oh my God! Yang Xingyang covered Ing Hong's mouth. How is it? The lords of the 4 Forbidden Lands can kill emperors? These words were a huge joke in front of Jiang Xiu. The gap between realms was not something that could be made up by numbers. Even if it could, it would not be just 4 people. It would be more likely to be 40,000. The entire Immortal Tribulation sect was dumbfounded, as if they were struck by lightning. They were all dumbfounded. They were so excited to kill Jiang Xiu that even the lords of the 4 great Forbidden Lands had come. How could there be any suspense? It was a proper hunt, but it was such a hunt that they were brutally oppressed. Not only did he fail to act tough, he even got trashed. However, the nightmare had just begun. Hua Yufeng felt a drop of sweat slide down from his forehead. His legs could not help but tremble. This was a feeling of fear that he had never felt before. It was so terrifying. He looked at Jiang Xiu with unprecedented fear in his eyes. You dare to kill slap. A crisp slap landed on Hua Yufeng's face. His whole body flew out and landed heavily on the ground. He covered his face and stared at Jiang Xiu with even more fear. At that moment he thought he was dead. Jiang Xiu could kill even the lords of the Forbidden Lands with a raise of his hand, let alone him, an immortal king. Don't kill me, Jiang Xiu said coldly. What, you're not clamoring anymore? You're not going to talk about your Immortal Tribulation sect anymore? How could Hua Yufeng still dare to do so? This slap had thoroughly awakened him. In Jiang Xiu's eyes, the Immortal Tribulation sect was no different from the small sects outside. If he wanted to kill them all, it would be a piece of cake. However, the Immortal Tribulation sect had already lost their support. Even the 6 lords of the Forbidden Lands had been killed. Who else could they rely on? Even if Jiang Xiu wanted to destroy their sect, they would not be able to resist. Whether to kill or not was up to Jiang Xiu. Sect Master Jiang, please spare my Immortal Tribulation sect. According to Jiang Xiu's nature, he would always be ruthless. However, the Immortal Tribulation sect was an exception. I won't kill you. Your life should be left to Shui Wuyao and the rest of you. I won't let you off easily. I will send you to the Heaven's Punishment platform and torture you until Shui Wuyao recovers. Hearing this, the disciples of the Immortal Tribulation sect heaved a sigh of relief. However, they were also filled with bitterness. 3,000 lashes and 3,000 electric shocks every day. Shui Wuyao's body was full of signs of torture. Jiang Xiu could hold back from killing them, but he had to vent his anger. Instantly, there were cries of anguish. This was simply killing them. Not convinced. Convinced. They had no choice but to accept that Jiang Luoxia was the Divine Emperor. Only the Divine Emperor could kill the 4 Forbidden Lands and dominate the Immortal Tribulation sect. On the Heaven's Punishment platform, all the elders of the Immortal Tribulation sect were chained. Pa pa, pa. The sounds of whips and howls of agony rang out incessantly. Every time the whip landed, the skin on their bodies would be torn open. It was a horrible sight to behold. What was even more miserable was that when the lightning struck their bodies, Even their bones could be seen clearly. Over 1 million disciples of the Immortal Tribulation sect witnessed this scene. They only knew that the sect had fallen out with Jiang Luoxia. Now they knew the reason. Elder Shui Wuyao had gone crazy, but she had comprehended the sword spirit. In order to seize her sword spirit, Elder Yu refused to treat her, and even tortured her. The sect leader, Hua Yufeng, was shielding the culprit. Now the Immortal Tribulation sect was defeated and punished by the heavens. Serves them right. Although the disciples of the Immortal Tribulation sect felt that it was nothing on the surface, they despised such actions. Seeing the elders being tortured, they weren't angry. Instead, they felt relieved. Murdering a fellow sect member, and seizing his cultivation base? This was worse than a beast. This was truly infuriating. Even at this stage, the sect master was still shielding him? Was there still any law? Such a thing would make anyone's hair stand on end. They felt that they didn't dare to fall sick, fearing that they would be harmed. How is Elder Shui now? I heard that Jiang Luoxia had invited one of the 3 great immortal doctors, Ji Wuhua, to treat him. It shouldn't take long for him to be cured. In Shui Wuyao Hall, Ji Wuhua finished treating Shui Wuyao. Jiang Xiu asked, "How's the situation?" "The situation isn't bad." Ji Wuhua wiped her slender jade-like hands. The soul-altering powder's toxicity has been mostly dispelled. For the next few days, let's recuperate his soul. When his soul stabilizes, his insanity will be cured. Jiang Xiu nodded. Sect leader. Yang Xingyang walked in from outside. She was always barefoot with bells hanging on her feet. Whenever she moved, it would make a sound. It was very pleasant to the ears. One could tell that she was here from afar. Xingyang is here. Yang Xingyang glanced at Shui Wuyao lying on the bed. She turned to Jiang Xiu and said, "The location of the Consonance Pavilion that you asked me to find has been found." She took out a book as she spoke. This book mentions that there is a mountain in the Western Sea called Dan Cave. There is a consonance tree's aura, so you can see the pavilion. This should be the Consonance Pavilion. However, there is a Western Sea in the Immortal Martial Continent, but there is no mountain in the Western Sea. Xingyang has also looked through many other mountains, but there is no Dan Cave mountain at the foot of the mountain. Jiang Xiu frowned. What about under the Western Sea? Would it be similar to Mingdu? Yang Xingyang said. No, Xingyang has been to the Western Sea. There is no world under there. The so-called Western Sea may not be the current Western Sea. Jiang Xiu said. Then let's look for it again. And that little girl suing is still in the pavilion. After Yang Xingyang finished speaking, she gave Jiang Xiu a look. As if it was because Ji Wuhua was here, Jiang Xiu chased after her footsteps. Xingyang, why did you call me out? Yang Xingyang said. You are now a divine emperor. It's amazing. Do you no longer need to cultivate? After speaking, Xingyang's cheeks flushed red. It was not that Xingyang was licentious, but after that day, Xingyang's own cultivation had also increased by a large margin. She knew that this was not only beneficial to Jiang Xiu, but also to her. However, after that day, Jiang Xiu seemed to have lost his passion for cultivation. This was not Jiang Xiu's fault. He was already a god emperor, and his laws had already fused together. He was already in the state of perfection. Now he could not improve by cultivating. His next step was to erect the God-sealing monument. However, he had not found the correct use of it yet. Cultivate, I must cultivate. That you're tuning in to the Earbook Haven YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.